Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TWitWoW Monthly Q&A. We are on the 14th edition of this thing. Officially been going for over a year. And guys, the old record, I believe, was 74. Is that right, John? Is that the old record that we had?
That sounds about correct to me, partner.
We shattered that this time around with, if we counted correctly, 83 questions.
Hot
Never
damn.
been done before. We've never hit 80 before, and we did this time. So,
Yeah, I mean, we had to go a whole hour earlier than usual, guys, because of the high volume of questions. And what's even crazier is that I had a botch on my part when I did the pinned tweet, and I said that Q&A number 14 was going to be August 24th. I was off by a week, and we still got this high volume of questions. So it's just unreal that even bot just couldn't stop the monsoon of inquiries that you guys wanted to hit us with. So respect to you guys.
absolutely. We have 84 questions or 83 questions, so we really should not continue to waste time talking about it. Let's just get right into it, John. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, I want to apologize to Jordan Amos and the Outsider, whose July questions we unintentionally didn't answer. It's not like we saw them and we're like, no, not answering that. It was literally just we either missed your question while we were scrolling through a long page of questions, or we just forgot because you sent it so early in the month. But either way, we are going to make up for that by answering your July questions here on top of any questions you might have had for August. So let's start with Jordan Amos's July question. And, it's because it's still kind of in the process of happening, but it hasn't happened yet. So let me just read it here. It's for both of us. And with the stuff happening in the Bullet Club right now, how would you separate it into the Bullet Club and the Elite, separating them into separate groups, and how would you treat them from a heel face perspective?
Me personally, even though it seems like Cody's going to take that spot, to me, he's still so new to the Bullet Club. I'd be far more intrigued about a guy like Tama Tonga taking the villain role because he was around in the Bullet Club, I believe, since the Prince Devitt days. So to me, I could see him turning on Kenny because they already had that heated exchange at G1 Climax. Young Bucks try and intervene. Let's say Fale, Cody, and all of them stop the Young Bucks. And then you have your severance. You have the Elite of Omega and the Young Bucks on one side, and then you have the Bullet Club, Tama Tonga, Cody, and all them on the other. And to me, in my fantasy booking, you could even have Kenny as still just the U.S. champion, no need to put the world title on him, but would culminate in a Tama Tonga versus Kenny Omega match for the U.S. title. Tama Tonga wins, and the Bullet Club has the U.S. Championship. And of course, Kenny's big goal for the Elite is the IWGP World Title, so he just goes back on that path. But yeah, I would just have Tama Tonga take the reins. I think he's a seasoned member, so it makes sense from that perspective. But I do think it's going to go with Cody, which I'm not a hater on Cody by any means, but to me, it's just going to feel weird if it does happen that way. So that's my answer to that. What about you, Ashton?
Yeah, I don't think I would use Tama Tonga as the face of like the OG Bullet Club that wants the Elite to break off. I would use Cody Rhodes, and I would do that by basically having Cody drop the Ring of Honor World Title to Dalton Castle within the next 3 months or so, and then have him come to New Japan and kind of give some words, whether it's a promo or an interview or whatever, basically talking about how, yeah, I had to be back in the United States for a few months because I won a championship over there and I had to defend it. But now that I'm done with that, I can be back here, and I come back here only to find that the Bullet Club has been taken over by a narcissist who doesn't care about the group but only cares about himself, and I want to change that. So we lead that into Kenny Omega and Cody being in a feud again over the United States Championship. And then I would say Kenny would win the first two matches against Cody. The first one would be a title match. The second one would be non-title. And then Cody would say, listen, Kenny, I want that United States Championship, and I'm willing to put my membership in the Bullet Club on the line for a third shot. And he beats him on that third shot with the Bullet Club membership on the line. And then Kenny Omega comes right back and he's like, oh, well, you know what? You're not going to get away with this. I'm putting my Bullet Club membership on the line for a rematch. And they have their rematch. Cody wins. Kenny breaks away. And then as this sort of like membership cutting ceremony is happening, the Young Bucks super kick Cody in the face and leave the arena with Kenny, forming the babyface elite, while Cody leads the heel Bullet Club faction.
I love it. Not really much more I can add. That seemed like very substantive booking to me, so I guess we can move on.
Okay. We have 2 questions from the outsider. First of all, he said, how would you book Stu Bennett if you were in Lucha Underground?
I know you've talked about how you'd like Barrett in Lucha Underground, so I'll have you go first on this.
Oh, yeah, happily. I would have him be the cold-blooded, bare-knuckle champion that we always wanted him to be portrayed as in the WWE. He's got to have a beard. He's got to have the longer hair. He's got to rock the broken nose. He's really just kind of got to like play up the grizzle of his character. And I think that we can just roll with that. Like, you don't even need to do much else to it. Just really just let him go out there. Let him, you know, his finisher would be a knockout punch because there's nobody that has anything like that in Lucha Underground right now. And even if you want to say, oh, but the Big Show does it. Well, Big Show doesn't have bare knuckle fighting experience in his background. He just does it because he's big. Whereas Barrett or Stu Bennett, which is his real name, would be able to do it from a technique perspective rather than just a sheer force, brute force power perspective like Big Show. So yeah, I would definitely push him as not necessarily a shoot fighter, but I would definitely want him to have more of like a boxing stance when the bell rings, then like, oh, let's lock up kind of thing. I want to have him like throw, basically give him the Cassius Ohno move set with like the elbows and the kicks and the punches and the forearms. But then, yeah, I would have the knockout punch be his finisher. That would be how I would handle it. How about you?
I mean, you and I are in complete agreement. I've always loved the idea that Barrett had this bare knuckle background, that I wanted to see so much more of that, because there's something so alluring about that to me. And like, what I love about bringing together Barrett and Lucha Underground is we talk about Lucha Underground's aesthetic, you know, the way they do cinematics, the grunginess of the temple and stuff like that. And it seems like a perfect fit. Like, I would personally debut him with cinematics where maybe he's fighting in, you know, another underground club that isn't the temple, maybe even almost like this pit looking place, you know, surrounded by people, and he's beating somebody to a pulp and his knuckles are stained with their blood and they got this bloodied face, and we see Cueto in attendance, and maybe he's so impressed with Barrett, like he gives him his card and says, I could have use for a guy like you, and we debut him that way. Not even necessarily with like vignettes where they give like a date, but I would do it as like an actual cinematic where these two find each other. And then Barrett comes to the temple. And then, to me, I feel like Barrett would kind of take on the role that Black Lotus used to have, where she's kind of like Cueto's enforcer. Like, he's not as strong.
Oh, yeah, I like that. I can dig that for sure.
Yeah, like, he's not as strong as like a Matanza per se, but when Cueto has to keep Matanza under lock and key for his own protection, then Barrett's on call. Like, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's like, if you took Matanza and you sacrificed some of that raw power for more sentience and more like ability for Cueto to control him to a degree.
Precisely. Maybe, you know, down the line, because I will say, when he returned with the whole life is pain, like that whole return before Bad News
Life is pain.
I like the idea that he was like leasing out his services to people, and again, I think that's another inventive thing that cinematics and stuff could do.
Yeah, definitely. Have him be like a hired hitman.
Exactly. Like, I could see him winning matches for an Aztec medallion, but then you see later in a cinematic that he exchanges the Aztec medallion with somebody for maybe like a briefcase full of cash or something. Yeah. So like, I could really see a natural trajectory of the character where like Cueto finds him, has him as an enforcer, but then when Barrett wants to branch out, take on his own enterprise, then he becomes like that hitman, you know, winning medallions or championships, or even just humiliation. Like, opposite, like, for example, just a hypothetical, Joey Ryan's a corrupt cop, so this is totally within the realm of possibility. He could give him money and say, you know, this Cortez Castro has really been a pain in my ass. You think you could do something about that? And then in like either a cinematic or a match that we see, Barrett roughs up Castro, and then he delivers like the bloody carcass, you know, the bloody face and everything to Joey Ryan, and then we go into that whole thing. So yeah, I think there is so much potential for Barrett, or at least the type of character that we're envisioning Barrett to be, that could be taken up by any number of performers in the temple, and I would love to see that. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I just wanted to kind of give my own spin on that as well.
Yeah, I dig that for sure. I like that we both had different ideas that had similar themes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we can get to the questions that were asked since we answered our last batch on July 27th. And our first like 24 questions were asked same day. So, first 4 questions are from Cliff 'em All. And the first question is, in the past, people were buried with the items they would need in the afterlife. So what 3 items would you want buried with you so you could use it in the afterlife if there was one? And then he did also put in parentheses, there isn't one. But let's just answer the question as if there was an afterlife.
Well, geez. I would think for me.
Oh shit! Wait. We'll get to that question next. I forgot. I almost skipped another outsider question. I'm so sorry, outsider. He asked 2 questions and we only answered one of them. Second one is for you, John.
Oh.
Fuck, marry, kill. Johnny Mundo, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins. Go.
Kill Kevin Owens, because then we would cannibalize him, and that's enough meat for the 2 of us. I'd marry Seth, because I wouldn't want to hold Johnny Mundo down and make him miserable for the rest of his life. And I'd fuck Johnny Mundo and caress those abs underneath the moonlight. So yeah, it seems pretty simple.
Okay, now let's get back to the question that Cliff asked about being buried with up to 3 items that you would need in the afterlife.
Geez, only 3 items. This question's both like difficult.
Would you like me to try my answer first?
No, because you went first on the last one, even though the last question was for me. So yeah, I guess you know what, you will go first. You go first.
Okay, so the first and most obvious answer is my laptop, because it's freaking entertainment forever. I never need to worry about anything else because, like, you know, I have my laptop. I can play video games. I can talk to people. I have a social life. I can watch television shows and movies. Like, the laptop is the ultimate in afterlife entertainment convenience. So obviously that would be my first choice. My second choice, here's the thing. I'm not going to pick any people because picking a person implies that they would have to die as well, and nobody wants that. And if they're already dead, then you can just find them there. You don't need to take them with you. So definitely not going to say any people on that. So my second item would be, the laptop is the big one. Second item, I'm actually having a really hard time thinking of anything other than my laptop because, here we go. Cheat code. How about like an Ethernet cable, just in case heaven doesn't have Wi-Fi, the afterlife doesn't have Wi-Fi. But no, I don't know. I feel like, you know what? I'll take my football so that I can play toss with people up there. And then a bicycle for quick, convenient ways to get around.
Okay, so I guess it's on to me. I like your practicality, so I would say my computer as well. Definitely my favorite philosophy book so that I never forget like where I came from and like what I'm passionate about. And depending on if my family's alive, I would want a memento that would remind me of them, whether it's like a photograph or something else, so that I would, always kind of have that memory of them. So yeah, I'd say a family memento based on their living or dead status, and particularly if they are living, because like you said, if they're dead, then I would just meet up with them and we would just party in the afterlife. Computer so that I could keep writing and doing my old stuff, even though people would be perplexed, like, where is this coming from? From hell. And my favorite philosophy books that I would just have something to pass the time and chew on for all eternity. So there you go.
Yeah, that works. All right. So second question from Cliff. Who fucked over Mexico harder, Sexy Star or Alberto El Patron?
Oh, Alberto El Patron easily. He's a scumbag, so fuck him.
Yeah, because the thing with Sexy Star is, in Mexico at least, because obviously in Lucha Underground, her character is very much a hero, but in Mexico specifically, in AAA, she's never really claimed to be a hero or a good guy or somebody that people should look up to or a role model or anything like that. Whereas Alberto went to Mexico and said, hey guys, I should be a hero because I stood up to the big bad WWE machine because they're racist against us. Praise me. And the people down there did, and then he left them anyway. So yeah, screw you, Alberto.
All right, next question.
Next question from Clifford Wall. Who out of the Mae Young Classic do you see becoming a top star in WWE within 5 years?
Here's the good and the bad for me. The people that I could get excited about, and then the people I'm not so excited about. Kairi Sane, definitely, because she's already a huge star, and I definitely think that profile would just transfer over to America. Dakota Kai, because even though I haven't had like that wow moment yet, she has a great look, and I think she has that versatility in the ring. Like just that double foot stomp alone looks so good that I think she would be the type that would gain mass appeal with audiences. I hate to say it, and this is where it gets kind of bad. I could also see Lacey Evans. Because xenophobia is still so strong in 2017. Our WWE champion, his reign is predicated on that. And she's so pro-American that, I think the opposite is true. Like, anybody that's emblematic of any kind of patriotism could thrive. So I'm only going to stop at 3 names there.
So like a modern-day female Hacksaw Jim Duggan almost.
Yeah, you could say that. I think very aptly, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, I'm only going to stop at those 3. So I'll say Lacey Evans, Kairi Sane, and Dakota Kai. What about you, Ashton?
Well, I definitely am going to sign on to Dakota Kai. She's my favorite. And then because I don't want to copy all your answers, I'm not going to use Kairi Sane or Lacey Evans. Toni Storm, not necessarily because I think she's the best, but because it seems like she's the most popular. I think the most people like her that know about her in the tournament. Tainara Conti is definitely going to be a big deal if she sticks with it and if she gets really good in the ring. Because like that Brazilian following, she could be like Jinder Mahal for Brazil instead of India. And Brazil's got a huge population, and she's the only female superstar probably in WWE history to rep Brazil. So that's going to be huge. Rhea Ripley, I think, might have the most upside out of anyone in this tournament, which, I mean, the only reason I say that about her is because like she has everything plus like 20 years old. You know what I mean? Whereas like, yeah. Dakota Kai is my favorite, but she's like 29, so she's been around for a while. She doesn't have like that incredible, like, oh my God, you're barely even legal to drink yet kind of age that you would hope for in just a true prospect. She's more of like the full package. Like she's ready now. Rhea Ripley is really, really close to being ready now, which is scary because again, she's 20. So definitely going to bring her up. God, what's another? You know what? Santana Garrett, I've already praised the ever-living hell out of. I feel like if I go any further praising Santana Garrett, people are going to start thinking I have a crush on her. And even though she is gorgeous, I'm not going to go that far. So definitely want to bring her up as just because like she's the whole package. And then people aren't. I feel like the 2 people that I really want to bring up that are getting slept on are Sarah Logan, who is Brandon Best is probably in chat right now, and he's probably freaking out that I brought her up. But the match that she had with Mia Yim opened my eyes. I am now a fan of Sarah Logan. I think that there is a bright future for that young lady. And then the other person that, for some reason, people just aren't talking about, maybe because it's just a given, Shayna Baszler. Like, I get that she's on the older side. She's 37, but legit MMA background, member of the MMA for Horsewomen, best friends with Ronda Rousey and Roderick Strong's wife, Marina Shafir. She's gonna, and she's a legit badass in the ring. Like she's basically like a Samoa Joe, Brock Lesnar type in the ring. Like, yeah, she's gonna go really far. She's probably gonna be Raw Women's Champion within the next 2 years, much less 5.
I like the idea of Shayna Baszler, but my thing is, and I might get some flack for saying this, I would want them to book her like a female Lesnar. Like, sure, have her win the title, but then, like, don't have her defend it every time. Give the women's title that treatment, and I guarantee you things I think would get a lot more interesting. Better that than a revolving door where Sasha loses it after 8 days. I think a Shayna Baszler title reign in kind of the spirit, the vein of Brock Lesnar would be very interesting. So, yeah, I could co-sign on to that under those particular conditions. So
yeah, and I'm sure there are other people too. Like I'm you know what, Abby Lath could be like a female Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, I mean with how she did against Jazzy Gabbard and like the whole response to that and everything. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and then long run wise, Rachel Evers and Tessa Blanchard both have a ton of upside. I just want to see more, especially from Tessa, because I feel like Rachel is much closer to being ready than Tessa. Whereas Tessa, not only is she further away as far as in-ring work goes, she's probably better character-wise. I think I would take Tessa over Rachel, but in-ring wise, I would take Rachel over Tessa. And obviously Tessa is more well known for her attitude problems than anything else. So I would probably put Rachel above Tessa on my list. But as far as like long term outlook, I think that they both have a lot of upside and they could both be champions on the main roster, probably even within that 5 year period. And especially if we're talking about just within the next 5 years, especially Rachel, because she doesn't have that attitude obstacle that she has to overcome like Tessa does, you know?
Right, right.
So yeah. Oh, and by the way, one last name. Not even a big fan of this person, but I guarantee you she's going to get pushed further than anyone, and especially relative to her skill level in the ring. Bianca Belair, guaranteed.
Yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point.
So that's going to be my list. I think I named like 7, so I made up for you not naming 5. So, third, or no, that was third. So fourth and final question from Cliff Amal. What is the worst lie that you ever recall telling someone?
Ooh.
I can go first on this.
Sure.
Okay, when I worked at the grocery store, I worked at a grocery store from 2010 to 2014. And for the first 2 years, I mean, it kind of sucked. It was kind of miserable, but I could deal with it. In my third year, though, I got put in the bakery, and that was like however many months that was. Like, if it was 3 months, those were the 3 worst months of my life. If it was 6 months, it was the 6 worst months of my life. I don't even remember how long it was because day to day, it was just a living hell to the point that everything just blurs together. And I legitimately could not tell you what month or what day I started on and what the month and day I ended on. It all just runs together for me. I hated that time of my life. Like, I hated everyone, everything, didn't like myself, didn't like my family, didn't like anyone, anything. I just hated everything. And there was one point that I was just feeling exhausted. I felt like I had to get out. And I just straight up didn't go to work one day. I just didn't show up, and there was no real reason. And I got a call from my manager, and I said, "Oh yeah, well I thought that I was getting my vacation this week." And she said, "Well, no. What do you mean? You're not even listed as vacation." I said, "Well, no. I asked for my vacation like 3 weeks ago." And then she said, "Well, no, you're not listed here." And I was like, "Well, do you want me to come in? I'm not even there. I'm in York." And I was saying this from my freaking living room. So I'm not even there. I'm in York right now. I thought that I was on my vacation, so I went down to York to visit friends. And she said, "Well, no, stay there. We'll see if we can work something out." And then I ended up getting a call later saying, "Okay, well, we ended up fixing things around so that you get your vacation now, but now you don't get another vacation for the rest of the year." So that was my big lie. Was I lied directly to my manager, telling her that I was under the impression that I was on my vacation, and then that I was out of town when neither of those things were true.
I'm kind of torn about what answer to give, which I think says a lot about my history. But I think the two answers I'll give, because when I was in Jersey, me and my sister were, and still are, incredibly close. Like, I'd give my life for her. She's my best friend. Like, she's my everything. She's honestly sometimes my reason for living. So I think the two that I'll give, I had kept, it's more a lie by omission, really, because I had known that she had met, and now they've been together, I think, for like over 10 years, I want to say, maybe close to that. I knew that she had met her boyfriend, Chris, and we now all live together here in New Hampshire, on the internet. And my grandmother was like staunchly against that, because my grandmother's the type, she watches a shit ton of Fox News, Nancy Grace. She hears about like, oh, Craigslist killers and rapists, this and that. So she was like very adverse to online dating. So she hated that he came from there, and I knew the entire time. So like when she would like go on and on about like how bad he was or this and that, and then she would ultimately find out because one of my sister's friends slipped. She was like, "Oh, John, can you believe it?" And I'm like, "Oh, I know. That's so shocking. Like, I don't know." So yeah, I never let her know that I knew, and yeah, that was just a secret between her and I. And in the same vein, because my sister, like, she experienced burnout, like, because our home life was very bad. And that's one of the reasons why we left here, because it was such a shithole. And I know my sister, like, she got so burned out. There was one course, like, it was a Shakespeare course in college that she didn't finish. So she wasn't going to get her degree. Like, she would be a part of the ceremony, but she wouldn't get a degree. So she hadn't formally graduated because she was off a few credits. She was just so burned out. Like, I feared that she was going to have, like, a breakdown because things were just so bad at home. And you know, my grandmother was so proud. We threw this party, and I ended up throwing this toast congratulating my sister on her graduation with a straight face. And then me and my sister go to the back, we go in the bedroom, and we're just laughing our asses off that we pulled it off. Because, like, we both knew the truth. Nobody else did. And I'm just amazed that nobody ever looked back to me when this stuff got revealed. Like, oh, John, did you know anything? I'd just be like, oh, no, I didn't know anything. So, yeah, me and my sister were as thick as thieves. And those are definitely, like, the two biggest lies by omission I think I've ever committed to my own family. So there you go.
But never like outright, like just stating something that wasn't true. It was always more along the lines of just playing along and not telling someone they were.
I think it was like a mix, because I think at times like I would explicitly lie, but that's only because like omission, I guess, kind of I used up the rope. You know what I mean? So like I had to put forward something positive, because just putting things in the negative, like, oh, I didn't know this or I didn't know this, wasn't going to cut it. So, yeah, those were, like, two big things because, you know, just a very tense time at the household at the time. So, yeah, but still, man, that just, yeah, just that loyalty between her and I, that's how strong it goes. So there you go.
All right. Up next, we've got 4 questions from James and John. I'm going to let you handle the first 2.
All right. The first one, if I'm not mistaken, was how big is Cliff's penis, right?
Yep.
And James, I would like to say that if I did answer this question, the next phone call would be from Child Protective Services. I know I have gone on record and I've said that I would like to get to know my son better. But if I got to know him that intimately, then something is seriously, seriously wrong with the drinking water. So I will say that I do not know the size of Cliff's penis. And if I am asked that question again, I will have to take legal action. That said, your second question was, what's my favorite way to eat ass? Now, this is a very important question, because I do think there is an ethical way for somebody to tongue your fart box. Now, personally, I would always like to shower beforehand, because I think a clean ass is a fun ass to play with. So, conversely, if I'm on the eating side, I would definitely want to eat a clean ass definitely after showering, because I think you put that in parentheses. So, absolutely. And James, we spend a lot of time in your bedroom together. You should know this. So that's my answer to your second question. Now we can get to the serious portion of Q&A again. What was James's third question?
Third question from James. What is the meaning of life? And my answer to that is there is no meaning of life. Nobody belongs here. And at the end of the day, life is what you make it.
I was simply going to say to pass butter. But yeah, Ashton's pretty much right. I've always taken like a human constructivist kind of approach. Like, we make our own meaning through our relationships, through our respective communities. I've never believed that, and I know philosophy gets maligned about this a lot, but honestly, it's a stereotype, because no philosopher in the 21st century, I think, has this kind of pursuit anymore of this objective, uniform meaning of life. I think you've definitely got to look to subjectivity. You know, again, our communities, our relationships, that's where we forge meaning. I don't think meaning is found in that sense. It's forged. And yeah, I completely co-sign into that spirit. So what's James's final question?
James's final question, favorite all-time comic book movie?
I'm really a fan of the Deadpool movie. So I think I'd say that. But you know what, though? Civil War was so good. And The Amazing Spider-Man, I also enjoyed that. So I'd say it's one of those 3. But I think I'll just say Deadpool, because I liked how it felt so different from a lot of what we've been getting lately from the superhero genre. But what about you, Ashton?
You know, I think this technically was a graphic novel, but I'm going to use it anyway. Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's very well done.
Yeah, like, I don't think I would have any Marvel or DC or any of those kinds of movies in, like, my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Whereas maybe Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, would be, because that's my favorite Marvel movie of all time. But if we're talking, like, just overall, like, my top 3 or so movies of all time are Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, The Big Lebowski, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Right.
So, considering Scott Pilgrim versus the World is based on a graphic novel, I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit and use that.
All right, fair enough. Next question.
We have 4 questions from Ella, and of course, the first one is a political-ish question. Thoughts on Columbine?
Honestly, and this is going to sound so terrible taken out of context, but given the other things we've been asked in preceding months, I kind of sighed relieved at this one, because I think this is a gimme. But I am going to put a different...
I actually want to correct myself. We have 3 questions from Ella, not 4.
Right. Yeah, you're right, because I was taken aback by that, too. It wasn't a full roster this month. But anyway, did sigh relieved because this just seems like a gimme, you know, like condemning Nazis, for instance. Obviously, Columbine was terrible. Here's where I'm going to put a little twist on, though, because I think Ella's looking for a little something else. Columbine was obviously a terrible tragedy, but I'm more fascinated, I want to choose my words carefully here, by the sociological implications. Because I noticed sociologists, one area of research lately has been, it's a shame Jackie isn't in chat because I think she works in that field, either that or psychology. I honestly forget which. And they've been focusing on the phenomenon of mass shootings because it seemed to have started at Columbine. And now you notice, like, every year, we can't seem to go a year without one major mass shooting. You know what I mean? So, like, they're looking for what's the phenomenon. So, obviously, Columbine's terrible. But I think also on an intellectual level, I am interested in the sense that it seemed to be a catalyst for this very perverse phenomenon in our society that we definitely see a spirited debate. Some sociologists think that it's kind of like this tribal ritual of sorts. Like you see these two Columbine shooters, and then other people do it because they want to feel this sense of belonging with those two shooters, almost like this exclusive club. Other people are like, no, it's not about tribalhood or community. It's about this. It's about, you know, stimulation, you know, the media we consume and this and that. So there are many competing theories. So yeah, Columbine, very succinctly, very directly, is obviously terrible. And it was a tragedy that I think, you know, really shook the nation to its core. But I think on a deeper level, it was a catalyst for social change in this kind of direction. And now you see, like, everybody trying to play diagnostics, like, what is the root cause of this? If there's even any kind of uniform, kind of unifying thing going on. So yeah, that's my answer to that. I'll kick it over to you. Your thoughts on Columbine?
Yeah. So I'm kind of at a constant state of being really torn about that situation. And I'll explain why before anyone jumps down my throat. Like, oh, how can you be torn? There's only one way to think about this. Because here's my thing. First of all, I think everybody is in control of their own actions. I think that if you make a decision, you have to live with it. And if it's a horrible decision that deserves to be punished, then it should be punished. But I also am a very strong believer in our environments shaping us. And I think that the Columbine shooters were obviously very psychologically impaired. And I think that the best possible outcome wasn't, oh, let's shoot up a school. It was, let's get these people help. And then let's get everybody else help that needs it so that this shit doesn't ever happen again.
Right.
So I'm always like, it's like I want to be like, wow, screw those guys. Like, they shot up a school. They're so, you know, they're so awful. They're dicks. And obviously it's a horrible, horrible thing to do. But on the other hand, I'm like, shit, man, like, what led to this and how could it have been prevented, you know?
Right. Well, I think you and I are pretty much saying the same thing, but from very different perspectives, because I'm looking at the phenomenon as a whole, and you're looking at that incident, but we're still looking at it the same way, as more like...
Well, no, I mean, you say I'm just looking at that incident, but I'm looking at that in... Really, it's a grand scale thing. Like, anytime you see college or any kind of mass shooting, I have the same thoughts. It's always, well, that person is horrible for doing it, but what led them to that point, and how can we prevent other people from going down that path?
Right.
So that's pretty much all I have to say about it. And then I guess we can move on. I think we have one other kind of serious question about Ella from Ella that maybe wasn't meant to get as serious as it's going to, but I'm going to make it serious because I have a lot to say about it. But first, let's talk about the Emoji Movie. She literally just said, thoughts on the Emoji Movie?
Didn't watch it and don't care to watch it. I've heard horrible reviews.
I didn't watch it and I don't care to watch it either, but I think that it speaks volumes about society right now, that this is something that's happening, and not even just like, oh, people are so stupid, you'll buy anything. I think it's more a message about IP and how Hollywood will take anything that has a name brand to it and make a movie out of it because they know it'll make money. And really, I think it started with Pirates of the Caribbean, because that first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, it was a good movie. That's my thing too. Like, I loved that movie, but the fact that it was so successful and it made so much movie and it was based on the Disney World ride, I think that really started this trend of, let's take anything with a name brand and turn it into a movie because that's our new cash cow. Like, everything is all either based on some IP or it's a sequel. That's like the entirety of Hollywood right now. And I think that the Emoji Movie is a symptom of that greater overlying issue that Hollywood doesn't know how to make money, so they just do the shit that's worked already. They do the IP stuff, they do sequels, they do the reboots, and that's their idea. This is how we're going to just keep making money and grinding out these movies, and the quality doesn't matter. Some of them may be good. Like I said, the first Pirates movie I loved, and even a couple other ones I've enjoyed, but it doesn't matter because the quality of the movie doesn't mean anything when you have that brand name attached to it, because people are going to go see it anyway. Like, I would be willing to bet that the Emoji Movie made a shit ton of money at the box office, even if it has like a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have really said it any better. Was this the question that you said you were going to make a bit more serious, or is that coming up here?
No, believe it or not, it wasn't.
Then what is it? Let's get to it.
Third and final question from Ella. What are things you don't like about internet culture? I'll let you go first on this because I have more to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep my answers as succinct as possible because there is a lot I'd want to say, so I'm trying to make it like, what's the most important
thing. Oh, and by the way,
say?
the Emoji Movie made back triple its budget, so I was right.
I'm only going to say one thing I don't like about internet culture that I notice like all the time. I hate echo chambers. And I noticed that a lot on the internet, like Facebook and Twitter, where people will only follow or be friends with people that only like give them that feedback of their point of view, which in a way makes sense, right? We always talk about if we're making communities, the best communities are those that like share our ideas and stuff like that. But to me, and maybe it's partially because of my line of work, or maybe it's because I just never as a person wanted to get too bogged down in one idea. Though if you've ever heard me speak, guys, you know I do have ideas I'm very passionate about. But I remember I was seeing one conversation between a friend of mine who was conservative and some person who wasn't my friend, but they were very clearly like Hillary Clinton type Democrat, stuff like that. And they were talking, and just at one point, my friend who was conservative just completely stopped the conversation, didn't read any of the links that were provided them that could have been a counterpoint or anything, just like full stop. And I really don't like that. Like, I know we have Sal in chat, and, you know, Sal is a Christian. Sal knows that I'm not a Christian. Sal has views about sexuality and other things that I vehemently disagree with. I'm sure we disagree economically too, if he's ever even seen a few of my tweets or a few of my posts. But I like my diverse group of friends because, you know, Sal as a person, I adore him. I think he's a great guy. I know Hypothesis. I see things he says in chat that I vehemently disagree with, and I know he probably disagrees with a lot of my stuff here. Does that mean that I'm going to block him or give him shit? No, he has absolutely 100% right to that opinion, and I think we need to experience that, if for no other reason, so that we ourselves don't become too intellectually stunted. And that, I think, is really kind of a shame, because I think when the internet first came upon us, everybody was like, oh, this is the greatest fruit of democracy. You know, like, we're going to be healthier, like a healthier political society now, because now all these discussions can take place. And to me, it's a shithole. Maybe that's just my cynicism, but in my neck of the woods, I really don't see much promise. And yeah, I personally hate it because I see it all around. I try my best. Not that I'm always successful, but I try my best to avoid it. So yeah, echo chambers are my least favorite part for sure. But you said you had a lot more to say, so the floor is yours.
You know, it's actually kind of funny that you bring up echo chambers as a bad thing, because while I do agree with you, there's also something beautiful to me about being able to go online and find groups of people who think the way you do and who have the same interests as you. So yeah, even though I do definitely think that everyone should be listening to different sides of every argument, I think that just having that sort of oasis to go to and be like, hey guys, let's talk about things we all agree on, it just feels good, you know? Like, it's obvious. Yeah. You're not going to grow from that experience. You're not going to, you know, gain anything from that experience. It's just cool that people can go somewhere that they can just feel good about the way they are, you know? Right. Yeah. And that, like, I like that. To me, that's a good thing about the internet. And I agree with you. I think that the intellectual diversity presented that you can have at the tips of your fingers is great as well. But this is my big problem with the internet. With the internet, a single bad decision made by a person, whether that is truly reflective of their character and their beliefs or not, if someone makes a bad decision and it gets onto the internet and it gets to the point that you can call it viral, the massive brigade that goes after these people is so overkill that it disgusts me. So, just for an example, just we'll even talk about somebody that I don't even like. Nia Jax, when Nia Jax almost dropped Charlotte on her neck, right? It was bad and it was televised and it was horrible. But the amount of shit that she got for making one mistake that she didn't want to make, that was unintentional, trying to do her job the right way, the shitstorm that she was met with was disgusting. And now, like, another example, Piper Niven in the Mae Young Classic. I'm not a fan of her wrestling skills, but I'm not going to go up to her on the internet and say, hey, you suck, kill yourself. But there are people that will, and it's worse because there are people who will fat shame her and go out of their way to make her feel horrible about herself just because they're insecure about themselves. And it's not just the one or two people, it's the whole brigade. It's, oh, there's a fat girl. We need to go after her. We need to attack her. We need to make her feel like shit because she's overweight. And then we can also talk about recently, Sexy Star. She made a terrible decision in the heat of a moment. And I think that she was lashing out at the wrong person and she should absolutely be punished in the sense of like, oh yeah, suspend her without pay or fine her or whatever. But the fact that this girl who's worked for over a decade to build up a career in the pro wrestling business, and now one bad decision is leading to her literally being blackballed by the entire business, save for maybe like AAA and maybe Lucha Underground, I don't even know about that, is disgusting to me. Like, her actions, horrible, absolutely. But should that action have this degree of negative consequence? I don't think so. So the whole thing to me with internet brigades, and I've really been starting to notice it lately too, and it's not just with Sexy Star. There are other examples that I can bring up, but I'm not going to get super into it. I just feel like it's worth addressing because it's got that current contemporary, like, oh, this is relevant right now kind of element to it. So that's my biggest problem. And then, of course, hate groups and the deep web and all the illegal shit that goes down, also horrible, but I feel like that's more obvious. So I wanted to touch on something that most of people in our audience don't think about as much.
Excellent answer. Let's move on.
Okay. Up next, we had 4 questions from Sal, who is in chat. Hi, Sal. How you doing?
Hi, Sal.
First question, worst entrance theme you've ever heard? I'll go first on this. Samoa Joe's original theme.
You know what? Damn, it's hard to beat that. Jeez. Yeah, damn, you really took a good one there. What is, like, you know what? I'm just going to say Cesaro's theme. Like, I feel like it's not so much that it's grown on me, but that I've grown numb to it. But it's still awful. And fuck you, CFOs, for teasing me that one time. Well, maybe we're working on a new theme. You weren't working on shit. Get back to me when you find an appropriate beat that you can loop for 3 minutes and give to him, because anything's got to be better than the crap he has now. So yeah, I'll say Cesaro's theme.
Okay. Next question, also from Sam, obviously. Do you think WWE should bring back unique and different stage designs for each pay-per-view?
No. Maybe I'm in the minority on this. I really don't care. And I don't mean that I'm apathetic, like,
oh, God. See, this is why we're best friends, because you and I have such similar values. Like, we don't give a shit what the set looks like. What we care about is the substance. We care about the wrestling. We care about the stories. We care about the promos. But the set design doesn't matter. As long as everything is well lit to the point that I can see what's going on in the ring, I'm good, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is a nice set, nice to look at. Sure it is. But you know what I'm really there for? Fucking wrestling matches and compelling stories. If you put all your money in that and it's good, then it's good. I really don't care what the set looks like, and hell, I would rather the WWE pull back costs on that if they could put in costs to hiring more competent writers and creating an overall better product than, oh, we need this kind of lighting and we need this much pyro. I mean, to me, it really does get nitpicky to a point. So I would say no, it does not matter to me. I do do not care one lick about unique stage sets. I want a better product, especially given the level of talent that we have in the wrestling world right now. So I'm guessing
Thank you for reading my mind.
So we can move on to the next question then.
Yes, we can, because you just spoke for both of us, my friend. Third question from Sal. What do you think of WWE's usage of Mike and Maria Kanellis thus far? I'll take this one first. It's about what I expected. It's WWE. They, you know, Mike Bennett and Mike Kanellis, whatever you want to call him, is one of those guys where you really need to feature him to realize just how good he is. You need to give him 10-plus minute matches. You need to give him 2-3 minute promo segments. You need to give him time to get himself over. And if you do, he will, because he's really good. But the thing is, if you're expecting him to be the type that's going to speak in sound bites and have good 2-minute matches, I think that you're expecting too much from him. I don't think that he's that kind of character or performer. And I think that that's all WWE's really given him. And I think that it's really unfortunate that he hasn't gotten more of an opportunity, especially on a SmackDown that really needs interesting mid-card heels, because all the heels right now feel very main event, and all of the baby faces that aren't Randy Orton, John Cena, AJ Styles, and Cena's on Raw now, so he doesn't even count, and Nakamura then, feel very mid-card. So we need a good, strong mid-card heel. It could very easily be that, but WWE's just like, nah, you're just going to be Maria's side bitch.
Yeah, you know, if I had to sum it up in a word, I'd say underwhelming. And I'm a bit
That is
torn.
so generous of you.
Yeah, and like I'm a bit torn here. Now, again, I'm going to be very careful with what I'm going to say here, and I'm going directly from words from Mike and Maria, so I'm not going like Meltzer or any of that shit. I don't know if Mike is struggling with something or he's getting out of a struggle with something, because they've been very candid about Mike's struggle with, I think, painkiller addiction. I don't know if he was going through something recently or he's just staying out of it. And obviously my support is with Mike. I applaud him and Maria for being so candid, having had addiction in my family. I know what a bitch that is. So nothing but respect for Mike Kanellis. I don't say any of that maliciously, but I don't know if knowing those issues, if that's kind of the reason they're a bit lukewarm on doing anything, because he jobbed to Bobby Roode most recently, so I guess he was good to come to work. But it's interesting because at first I was excited that he debuted on the main roster, completely bypassing NXT, because I'm like, oh, if he's bypassing NXT, you know, and it's Maria and it's all this stuff, he could like be this really solid mid-carder, upper mid-carder guy for a little bit and then go into that main event. And I even like the gimmick, so I can't even really trash the gimmick. Like the idea that Maria was the lead and he was just so in love and, you know, he was all this, you know, it's fine. But I really don't think they've done him justice as far as showcasing his talent goes. And even though it would have been more cliche, and I readily admit that, I do wonder if it just would have been better to debut Mike as this very confident, very capable performer with his hot wife by his side that cuts a solid heel promo.
I think that's kind of a problem too, because one big sort of element to Mike has always been he's been very arrogant, very cocky, and that plays into his mic work. And now they've basically forced him into a more passive role where he basically has to play like the submissive to Maria's dominance.
Yeah. Which,
so they're basically saying like, hey, Mike, everything that you're good at, we're taking that away. You don't need it anymore. You're just gonna...
I mean, that's the Mike I think you and I fell in love with in Ring of Honor. And we're not getting that here, which is difficult. Like, I'd love that Mike. You know, and when I think of that Mike, I think Mike Bennett, because now I know he's Mike Kanellis and whatnot. But, like, I would love for that Mike that we fell in love with to answer an AJ Styles U.S. Open Challenge and do stuff like that. I mean, him jobbing to Bobby Roode, I mean, in one way I get it because Bobby Roode's stock is high right now. How high it'll go is up to a determinative factors that I'm not going to go through here. But I definitely, again, just goes back to underwhelming. And it could be a litany of factors. It can't just be, oh, just WWE booking, which it might be. But I'm open that it could be, you know, other things. I just hope they get their finger on the pulse with what they want to do with him, because I think he's so talented. And I agree exactly with what you said in your answer. I think Mike is what SmackDown needs at a time when they really need it. And, you know, that's that solid mid-card heel when everybody's looking like main event. And, yeah, I don't think that'll happen for him, which is really sad. And that's really all I can say about that.
All right. Let's move on. And our fourth and final question from Sal. Which entrance theme composer has produced better theme songs, CFOs or Jim Johnston?
Having grown up, I guess, in the latter half of the Johnston era, and then the entirety, pretty much, of the CFOs era. The thing with CFOs, and I don't say this negatively because I know it's kind of become a joke. I think somebody even burned him on Twitter recently for it. But what I said earlier, like with CFOs, it's this really either a catchy beat or a beat that they find catchy, and there is a difference. And it's more or less looped with maybe a few alternating sounds here and there. Jim Johnston's themes, like, I feel like there's a bit more variance in a way, but there are themes that I like from both. Like Joe's newer theme that he's been using now, love that. Seth's theme, love that. But with Jim Johnston, I mean, Glass Shatters, The Rock's theme, Angle's theme, all great stuff. So who's better? I think Jim Johnston's always going to be the one with the legacy because Attitude Era fans are so hardcore, and that's like their guy. And he produced themes for people that were also the guys as far as the in-ring product goes. But CFOs, even though they have a certain style that is very discernible now, I think, from a lot of people, that doesn't make it bad. I think it's just hit and miss. Like, is the beat catchy? Does it have replayability? And I'd say more often than not, from my experience, it's a yes. So I think while I prefer Johnston, I think Johnston will have the better legacy overall. That's not to discredit CFOs in any way because I think they have great themes too. So what about you, Ashton? What do you think?
Yeah, I am actually kind of torn on this, but I do lean with CFOs. Jim Johnston, I think what makes his themes great is how instantly recognizable they are. Like the glass shatter, the Undertaker's gong, the smell what the Rock is cooking, all that stuff. Like it's super recognizable. But then I have to sit back and think, like, is it recognizable because that's an inherent trait of the song? Or is it recognizable because those were the songs that were playing when wrestling was at its most popular?
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Like, of course, something is going to be more recognizable if 8 million people were watching then and 2.5 or 3 million are watching now. So that, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a built-in bias. But then I kind of really have to think, like, with CFOs, I think I'm more likely to have any given CFO's theme song on like my phone so that I can listen to it on like a regular basis for the sake of just listening to the music because I like the music. But I don't necessarily know if that makes them better wrestling theme songs. And it's funny too because like the more I think about it, the more I realize like the best wrestling theme songs of the last decade or so are ones that weren't made by CFOs or Jim Johnston. Because you think about, the first theme, the Word Life Basic Economics, and the current theme, My Time Is Now, those are both not made by CFOs or Jim Johnston. You think of Daniel Bryan, that Flight of the Valkyries, not made by either one. CM Punk, the In Living Color, Cult of Personality, not made by either one. Brock Lesnar's theme, I don't think was made by either one. So, like, really, I feel like the actual best theme songs aren't made by Jim Johnston or CFOs. But if I had to pick between those two, I'd probably go with CFOs for the replayability because they're already on a loop. So if you just want to put them on an endless loop, it's going to be catchy until you get sick of it, and then you move to a different one.
Enough said. I think that was well said. So next question.
All right. Next question is from Brandon. We've got 4 from Brandon Best. First one is for you, John. If Seth Rollins and Johnny Mundo fused, what would their name be and what would their fighting style be?
I would say
Steffi Rollundo.
Yeah, I was going to say John Rollison. Even though it's Mundo, we would just go back to Morrison for the fusion, and or John Rollundo. So there you go. And I definitely think a mix of like high flying, but since Mundo is a heel and he seems to have more of that ground pound striking style, you got strikes in there with just a dash of like technical alignment. So like I would say maybe 60% high flying, 30% ground pound / strikes, and then 10% like technical stuff. And that would be like the breakdown of the style of this incredible fusion that shows that there is indeed a god to create such a magnificent being. So yeah, that's my answer to that. Next question.
The next question is just for me, and this one is, what is your favorite touchdown in football history? Oh man, this is tough. You know what though? I actually do have an answer, and it's very, very recent. It's actually Julio Jones's long touchdown against the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game that happened this year from the 2016 season. And the reason that I love it so much is because Julio catches the ball in the middle of the field, and he catches it in stride, so he's able to keep running without having to slow down or anything. And then he gets to the sideline, and there's a defender right there. And the defender goes to use his right hand to grab Julio's jersey to try and bring him down. And Julio reaches his left arm out and blocks this defender's hand with his hand. Like, he uses his left hand to grab this defender's arm to push it away, and then when he feels like he's away enough that he's not going to grab him, he uses that same left hand to just stiff arm the shit out of this defender head first and throws him down, and then just continues running for the touchdown. It is easily my favorite football player that I think I've ever seen a Falcon make. And that speaks volumes, because I've been a fan of the Falcons for over a decade now. And I was a fan even back in the Michael Vick days when we had Jarius Norwood, Anton Smith. There have been a lot of electric Falcons players that I've seen, and I've never seen a better play than that touchdown by Julio Jones in Green Bay NFC Championship game. It was amazing.
Nice. All right, next question.
Next question is for both of us. If you guys had to compare yourselves to sitcom characters, who would you be?
I've been telling my friends recently, even though I named my penis Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, the entirety of my being, I once told my friend Ryan, of like, we've been friends for like 18 years, that I'm definitely a Tobias Fumke type. Because I feel like I have that optimism that I'm going to do great things, but more often than not, I'm just, kind of that sad Zach that cries in the shower wondering why I got a negative review on my high school, school play. So, yeah, Tobias Fumke for me. What about you?
My sitcom character, this is going to be really, really random, but I feel like I almost have to say, I forget his name. The dad in Love and Marriage. God, there's a sitcom called Love and Marriage, and the dad character, God, I'm trying to remember what his name was. I'm even trying to Google it to see if I can find something about it, and I'm not finding anything. But I feel like that character is pretty close. I'm gonna look up Love and Marriage cast.
What was his name?
Al Bundy. Yeah, played by Neil. Yeah, probably him, because he was a big football fan like I am. He was, he was a bigger guy like I am. He kind of made dumb jokes and puns like I do. So probably him. I don't know. I'm not very good at just naming random sitcom characters off the tip of my tongue, but that's the first one that came to my mind, so we'll just roll with it.
All right, next question.
And yes, Sal is now singing the Love and Marriage. Love and Marriage, Love and Marriage. Come on, John, do you know the words to this?
No, and even if I did, I wouldn't participate in this
question. Like a horse and carriage. I'll stop. Let's move on. Next question from Brandon. Fourth and final question, actually. Thoughts on the idea of fans having to support all of the women's wrestlers because they're women?
Completely idiotic. That
Thank
in
you.
itself, I
Thank
feel like
you,
is a kind
John.
of sexism.
Yes.
And really, I wouldn't want to put Ashton through that, because if we had to do that, then he'd be the biggest Charlotte fan alive. And I know that if he had to do that, he'd put a gun to his temple and he'd end it all.
Yeah, like the thing is, like, that's sexist. Like, that is blatantly sexist. That is you openly admitting that you are going to grade female wrestlers on a different scale than you grade male wrestlers simply for the fact that they are women. That is sexism.
And here's an important distinction I want to make, because I was thinking about this too. I feel like every woman that wants to be a wrestler should have the right to pursue it, but it doesn't mean I have to like the fruits of your pursuit. So if somebody wants to be a wrestler, nobody should be obstructing their path because they're a woman, but that doesn't conflate with, oh, I have to be a fan of yours because you're a woman. Because you could be a wrestler, but you could be a shitty wrestler. The same way me, because I know a lot of disabled people aren't philosophers, doesn't mean that just because I'm one and I'm unique for that reason, doesn't mean that I'm going to be good in my field. It's two completely different things. So while I think every woman that wants to be a wrestler should have the ability to pursue that, doesn't mean that that ability is going to translate in me being a fan of yours, and you can't tell me to.
And I also want to mention, I apologize, we skipped, I thought I had it picked, but we accidentally skipped Brandon's fourth question. That was actually Bullet Club versus the Shield's first question. So we'll finish answering that, and then we'll go back and answer Brandon's last question. Apologies for that, but yeah, that's a pretty easy question to answer.
Yeah, that was essentially my answer. So I guess we'll backtrack. What was Brandon's final question?
How would you go about making a match between Timothy Thatcher and Minoru Suzuki? Do you really even need to get creative with that? Just have them go in there and shoot the hell out of each other.
I was going to be very straightforward, assuming that Timothy Thatcher is still Progress World Champion, and even if he isn't, fuck it, I'm doing this anyway. If he's Progress World Champion, I've mentioned multiple times that Suzuki Gun, they're kind of like pirates. They like to go to promotions and take all the gold. It's simple. Make it about the Progress World title. Suzuki's this older guy. He's never been in Progress. He's never held that title. He wants to keep building his legacy. And if you even want to get a bit more creative, Timothy Thatcher is like a gaijin in that sense. You could just have Suzuki shoot on him extra hard because of that fact. Boom, you have a feud. Simple as that. So on to Bullet Club versus the Shield, second question.
Yeah, apologies for that for both Brandon and Asia for mixing those up. But Bullet Club versus the Shield's second question is, who is a wrestler that makes you disappointed to be a fan of theirs?
I instantly thought of like Benoit because of this, but I think they mean living wrestler, and that's more difficult. I would say, you know what? I know an answer I'll give. Enzo Amore. Because when he initially broke from Big Cass, and you can even attest to this, I would say in the Discord, because I know we haven't done like TWitWoW in a while for a Raw, that like, oh, I'm loving his promos, and he's like, he's got this fire to him, and now he's become a joke all over again. But I feel like if I was to really pay attention to Enzo, he may win me back over. But then hearing the stuff that I've heard, like he's getting kicked off buses, and he's bringing certain type of people into the locker room that he shouldn't be bringing in there, and all that stuff. Like, if that's true, that is pretty embarrassing where you're like, oh, yeah, I really like that Enzo Amore guy. A guy can cut a promo, and they're like, oh, isn't that the guy that insert thing here? Yeah, but, so I would say Enzo because he was really starting to win me over, and then that stuff came out, and I even said, like, I'll never be able to look at him the same way if it's true. And, yeah, he still cuts a decent promo, but it's kind of awkward for me to like the guy knowing what I know. So I'll say Enzo. What about you, Ashton?
I kind of have multiple answers for this. Sort of an obvious one's AJ Styles, because we already kind of know that he's got that history of homophobia and possibly maybe rumored racism. We don't know for sure. But we do know that he is like the overly conservative, overly religious, God's way as intended kind of person. So that's kind of disappointing. Ricochet, I would say to a much lesser degree, because for him, it's not so much like, oh, like your personal values are screwed up. It's more along the lines of just like, I just expected more from him from a professional standpoint. Like I was really rooting for him to be like a really, really upstanding kind of guy from a professional standpoint. And just having it turn out that he's more diva than upstanding is disappointing. But really the big one for me is actually Ivelisse, because I really like her character. I really like her in ring. I like her promos. There's everything from an on-screen perspective I like about her, but there are constantly reports about her having an attitude problem. She's already tweeted before that depression wasn't a clinical issue and that it was all in your head and that it wasn't an actual disease. And like, there's just a lot of ignorance coming from her direction, and it's just really disappointing for me.
Yeah, I can totally understand that, dude, because I've heard the same and I've seen the same. So yeah, great choices there. I guess we can move on to our next question.
Absolutely. Up next, we have another question, third question from Bullet Club versus the Shield. What is one bold prediction you have for NXT?
You know what? Here's my bold prediction. I say that the ROH faction of Cole and Red Dragon are going to hold the world and NXT tag titles by the end of 2018. Because she said one bold prediction for NXT for the year, right? Or just one bold prediction in general?
Just one bold prediction in general.
Oh, well then, just generally speaking, yeah, they're just going to hold all the gold at one point. They're going to do what we thought Sanity would do minus the NXT women's title. And it's just going to be the NXT world and tag titles. So, yeah, what about you? What's your prediction?
Well, it says bold. So let's get bold. I think that Buddy will eventually hold the NXT World Championship.
Okay. We know you're very high on Buddy Murphy. I think he has all the ability to. I think he suffers from the same problem that Andrade does. That he might have just come in at the wrong time when all these other like bigger name talents came in. But if
Yeah.
anybody can be the exception rather than the rule, I'd say a Buddy Murphy could do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like that prediction. Next question.
All right, fourth and final question from Bullet Clovers the Shield. Name a wrestler you see being released in the next year, not including Paige.
You know, I'm gonna say Rusev.
That's
Yeah.
actually a really easy pick because there have been rumors already that he's asked for his release or that there's a contract coming up and he's not going to sign it or something like that. Yeah, like that feels inevitable.
Yeah. And even though he took to Twitter to squash those rumors, I don't know if he was doing it just to be that kind of guy that never wants to close a door, so to speak. I'm still going to go with him because even if he is happy now, a lot can change in a year. And yeah, I'm going to go with Rusev.
All right. So then we had.
Well, what about you? Wasn't
Oh
that
my!
much
Yeah. Oh
close?
yeah. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention Emma. I'm hoping it's Emma because I want her in Lucha Underground more than anything.
Yeah, okay.
I accidentally put Sal's questions on here twice, so apologies for that. Apparently, we don't have 83 questions; we have 79. But then let's move into Daniel McGrady's 4 questions. First one: favorite multi-man matches ever? I'll go first on this. My favorite triple threat that I think I've probably ever seen is Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, John Cena at Royal Rumble a couple years ago.
Yes.
I also want to give an honorable mention to Mil Muertes, Prince Puma, and Pentagon Dark from earlier in season 3. Or no, actually, I think that was early in season 2, not season 3. So it was Pentagon Junior still. And then as far as like multi-man, like crazy tag matches, The Shield versus Evolution. And you could say at either of the pay-per-views that they wrestled at, I think it was Elimination Chamber and Extreme Rules. Or no, not Chamber. It was Extreme Rules and something else. I don't remember.
Right.
But yeah, those are probably my favorite multi-man matches.
I'm just gonna give.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I forgot one. DIY AOP Revival Triple Threat.
Beautiful. WrestleMania 20, Benoit, Michaels, and Triple H. I also thought their Backlash Triple Threat rematch was pretty good. I would definitely agree with you about Lesnar, Rollins, and Cena. I thought that was fantastic. The Shield's debut, I want to say TLC 2012, I think, against Team Hell No and Ryback. I thought that was also, a really, really great debut for the Shield. Worldwide Underground versus the Lucha Trinity for the Trios titles. I thought that was a very chaotic tag match. And then there's one other match that I feel like I want to say, but it's not coming to me and I don't want to spend 20 minutes mulling it over. So that'll be my list there. And I guess we can move on to our next question.
That's fair. All right. Next question. Second question from Daniel McGrady. Which countries would you like to go to for your holiday that you haven't visited yet?
For me, the answer is always the same. I'll put 3 countries here. Germany, love to visit that. France and Greece all have very deep philosophical roots. I would love to, visit like sites and stuff like that. Definitely appeal to the inner nerd in me. Definitely those 3 countries, Germany, Greece, and France. What about you?
Yeah, I like that answer. Really, it's kind of funny because 2 of my 3 answers, since you gave 3, I'll give 3. 2 of my 3 answers are contiguous to the United States, Mexico and Canada. I want to visit both of those countries. And then for a third country, let's say New Zealand.
Oh, nice.
I've heard New Zealand is like legitimately the most beautiful country in the world. Like the only like New Zealand, Australia, and then the other country that I would mention that isn't in that like South Pacific area would be South Africa, because I've heard great things about that, and they produce amazing wrestlers too. So
yeah, you know what's funny about New Zealand and why I love that you answered that, because I used to have like friends from there, and they were always like very nice, very warm people.
New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand.
Nice.
I don't know if this has changed, so I don't want you to treat this like I'm telling you current information, because this was a few years old. But I remember I got in a debate with one of my conservative friends, back to that echo chamber thing. And they were on a whole spiel because I was critical of the U.S. Like, I think it was about a flag burning post. I'm like, I don't really give a shit about people who burn flags. Like, it's just fabric, more fabric. And they're like, oh, well, name any other country that has more freedom of speech than the U.S. So I kind of pulled a U where I Googled it, and I'm like, countries with greater free speech than the U.S. And I think New Zealand actually came in at number 1. So I think New Zealand. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's changed, but back when I had that debate with my friend, and then they still didn't.
Don't ever ask an actual Kiwi about New Zealand because they go out of their way to make it seem unappealing because it's so good.
I know, right? They want to keep it all to themselves. Those clever.
Dude, I'm not even joking. Like, I've seen a thread on Reddit before where we were like, people of New Zealand, what about New Zealand makes your country different than USA? And there were people in there like going out of their way to be like, oh yeah, we're not allowed to have gardens. And it was completely untrue, but there are like people like making it seem like it's like this police state.
You know what, though? Kudos to them for wanting to keep what they've got, because, we see what happens to countries that have it good, and other countries are like, oh, that's a really nice thing you got going on there. Maybe it could use a little bit more freedom. So, good on you, New Zealand, for protecting your interests.
But we're the freest country in the world. Not according to us.
Yeah, not anymore. No! But I guess we can move on to our next question.
All right, third question from Daniel McGrady. What are your favorite babyface beatdown by heel segments of all time?
Babyface beatdown by a heel. Okay. I'd say when Mick Foley got assaulted by Evolution, and they gave him that black eye, and then he does the interview with Jim Ross a week after. That was really good. I know this might not technically count, but I'm going to do it anyway, because when I was a kid, I was shocked that this happened. When Evolution turned on Randy Orton, because that was effectively making him a babyface, because the beating was so prolonged and everything else, and they gang up on him. I remember as a kid thinking, what the hell's going on? And then, of course, it was all about the world title, because I'm Triple H, and I'm the only one that can wear it. So that was good. Babyface beatdowns by a heel. I remember one time, and this is more on the comical side, when TNA was doing a storyline where AJ was slowly turning back into a face, and he seemed to be smitten with Kurt's wife, Karen, and Kurt just beat the shit out of AJ, and he was all bloodied, and Karen's doing her fake crying, and it's hysterical. I like that more from an it's so bad it's good standpoint. So yeah, I've been giving 3 examples of each thing. I think I'll stop there. What about you, Ashton? Do you have any answers you want to give?
Yes, I do. First of all, Triple H and Stephanie's combined beatdown on Daniel Bryan when they handcuffed him.
That was great. Excellent choice.
Second, Braun Strowman beating down Roman Reigns with the stretcher and the ambulance and the not finished with you.
Yes.
Do you want to plug the shirt?
Oh, yeah, get the shirt on Teespring, guys. I'm not finished with you. It's good for
and by the way, we mentioned Emma earlier, and we forgot to plug that. There's an Emma shirt. There's a shirt dedicated to Emma on the Teespring as well that just says the real face of the revolution, and it's a silhouette of the sunglasses and her dark purple lipstick and her half glove, all kind of just arranged nicely, and I think it looks really good. It's really aesthetically pleasing, and you can get it in light blue or purple or green or tan or white or gray. You've got a choice. The only real color that people might want that it's not available in is black, is because most of the design is black. So, and yes, Sal, you did. She loves the Emma shirt design, and that's what she yelled. I love that shirt. So anyway, Braun beating down Roman is my number 2 pick. And then for my my 3 pick, it's actually not really so much of a beatdown as it is a match that ended up being a beatdown. And that's the first Grave Consequences, just because Mill just bludgeoning the shit out of Phoenix and ripping his mask off and using a freaking ring post iron to just clobber him is the best.
Absolutely. All right, next question.
Next question is another question, 4th and final question from Daniel McGrady. What was the one toy / game you wanted so badly as a child that your parents never bought for you?
Oh, man, that's difficult. I'd say when Sly Cooper came out for the PS2, because I never owned a copy, but I played that demo relentlessly. And to be fair, yeah, I love that game. In fact,
I was asking you what game?
Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It was a great series of games. I think I would end up getting it later, but that was more with my own money. And to be fair, the only reason I didn't get it that Christmas was because I never said that I wanted it. Because like I thought,
wasn't that like almost like a Banjo Kazooie type platformer?
not. Yeah. I mean, I guess in a way, I never really made that kind of association. But yeah, the only reason I never got it, to be fair, was I never said explicitly I wanted it for Christmas because like I thought that we were going through financial troubles because again, as I've said repeatedly, like I didn't have the most normal childhood. So I'm like, oh, I can't, break the bank. Like we don't have the money. So yeah, there was a lot I didn't ask for, but thankfully I would get it later. As far as like things they never got me as a kid, that's difficult for me because there was never really a lot that I asked for. It was only when I got older and learned how to speak and like be able to buy things for myself a little bit from time to time that I really had that problem. But yeah, that's the first game that comes to mind because it took me a while to get my hands on it. I could have gotten it a lot sooner if I wasn't so thick-headed. So that's my answer to that. What about you, man? Is there anything that like you wanted that just like was never meant to be for you? You can never really get your hands on
going back to when I was like single-digit age, like 6 through 9, maybe even like early double digit, like 10, 11, 12. I wanted that skip it thing where you like it's like a ring with like a long plastic like a wire, I guess you could call it, attached, and then a ball on the end, and you put the ring around your ankle, and then you could just skip. And for some reason, I really wanted that, and I never had one. So anytime I would go to my one friend's house who had it, I would use theirs.
Okay.
Oh, here's a big one. Since you mentioned toys, this isn't really a toy, but it's the big one. Something that I always wanted that I always never got, and I always had to use someone else's in order to use it at all. Trampoline. I always wanted a trampoline, and I never had one of my own. I always was either using a friend's or like my dad had one for a brief period of time, and anytime I go to his house, which was like 2 days every 2 weeks because I was an every other weekend kind of situation there. And yeah, I wanted that trampoline so bad, but my dad had one and I was able to use it there for however long it lasted, which was maybe like a year, if that. And yeah, that's about it. So yeah, never got that trampoline, and now I'm probably too big to use a trampoline. So yeah, that's just kind of a dream long gone.
All right, next question.
Thanks, Daniel, for the depressing side effects. Anyway, next question. We've got 4 questions from Hypothesis. First up, do you think that when Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa get brought up to the main roster, that they will become the Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens of 205 Live?
Unfortunately, probably. And like,
I'm just sitting here thinking, I really hope not, because that was like their ceilings are so much higher, like way too high for them to be stranded on 205.
Yeah, it's a shame, Hypothesis, because I think you're onto something there. Like, we know they're talented enough that program would be the best thing to ever happen at 205 Live, but that's precisely the problem, is that it's happening on 205 Live rather than on Raw or SmackDown. It's just a part of the heavyweight division. So I hope you're wrong, but just to be succinct and cynical, it's going to be the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn at 205 Live. What about you, Ashton?
I mean, like I said, I hope not, but you know what? I'm gonna say no. I don't think so, because like the thing with Zayn and Owens is that they've basically been feuding with each other for a decade now. It's not actually a decade; it's like 7 years, but still close enough. Like they were feuding with each other in PWG and ROH before they got to NXT. Then they feuded on NXT. Then they feuded on the main roster. Whereas Gargano and Ciampa, they've really only just feuded, like just now. Like they never really had any big time feuds prior to their time in NXT. And then they were a team for like a year and a half in NXT, and now they're feuding, or kind of feuding, when Ciampa gets back healthy. But still, I don't think that it's going to be as much of like a fight forever situation as Zayn and Owens.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I can appreciate that. I guess we can move on to our next questions.
Okay, so if WWE 2K24 has a 40 years of WrestleMania mode, and it actually has, the first question in this is, should WWE 2K24 have a 40 years of WrestleMania mode? And if it does, he's suggesting that you would play through matches from WrestleManias 30 through 39, the ones that didn't make it into 2K14 as bonuses, plus NXT Takeover and Hall of Fame showcases. So do you think that that should be a thing or not? Because I personally don't care. So I'm just going to say I don't think it should be a thing because I don't have an opinion either way. But I'm curious on your opinion since you play the 2K series much more hardcore than I do.
Oh, absolutely. And now that I've gotten this computer upgrade, I'm definitely eyeing 2K18. Here's the thing. I mean, why the hell not? I could see them doing it. Look, as technology improves, capabilities improve, right? And when capabilities improve, you can put out different products. Today, by today's standards, I think a product like that seems almost inconceivable, at least to me, but I'm very inept in a lot of areas. Maybe I'm missing something. But, you know, in the future, again, why not? Why not do it? I've always thought, like, but see, the only reason I don't think they will do it, and again, not to be cynical here, but in any market, you're going to want to withhold. That's why we have things like planned obsolescence. And that's why you don't get this feature you really wanted until the next installation. You've always got to leave the people wanting something. I think if a 2K game for WWE did something like that, you might as well just call it, like make that the end of the series. I mean, yeah, I know there are going to be future WrestleManias and this and that, but like seriously, who would be able to stop playing that with that much content? So I don't think they'll ever get that ambitious, but I see no reason why not. I think the modes that they've done have been very interesting. Like now that I've got a better computer, I really should do the Stone Cold showcase because it looks nice. But I'm going to be honest, and maybe I'm in the minority here. I'm sorry I'm going on like this, but since you fielded the question to me, I actually am a more simplistic guy. I miss when you could just do a standard season mode and just pick anybody to fill the shoes of it. Like, I would just love to do a season mode with Braun Strowman, and I know they have that in universe mode, but the problem with that is it gets very repetitive very quickly. Like, I've been doing a season mode with Hideo Itami because everybody knows that I'm on my Kenta kick. I can't tell you how many fucking triple threat matches I've competed in, and I only recently got a match for the United States title against Seth Rollins, who was also holding the world title. So why am I not getting a world title shot? Like, the whole thing is bunk. You know, just give me a season mode with specific stories, and I'm good. I miss it. I don't think it's ever coming back, unfortunately, so that's just the crotchety old man in me. But to answer your initial question, I don't see why they couldn't do that. Will they do it? I don't think so, but I think it would be a hell of a lot of fun, and why the hell not? So, next question.
Next question is third question from Hypothesis. Is it safe to say that the top face of Lucha Underground is like the main character to a Star Wars trilogy? And then he compares Puma to Anakin, and then El Dragon Azteca Jr. to Luke Skywalker, because, again, Anakin becomes Darth Vader, Puma is obviously Puma Dark now, and then Azteca, a.k.a. Luke, is kind of like the good guy all the way to the end.
I always feel like you're better with questions like this than I am. So I
mean, it's a fair comparison, but I don't really know why we have to be specific to the Star Wars trilogy. Like it could relate to any story where we get a good guy that becomes a bad guy and then a good guy who stays good the whole way through. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, yeah, like you made the connection and that's cool because it is a valid connection, but there are dozens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands other ways that you could connect Puma and Azteca to a non-wrestling mainstream story.
Yeah, I mean, I essentially agree with what you said. I do
hey guys, Prince Puma's like Judas and Azteca is like Jesus.
Yeah. I do like that Lucha Underground can take like their premier stars. Like in this case right now, it's clearly Puma, and they can take them through legitimate ebbs and flows. Not, oh my God, he lost the title, and then the next night, like either he's all smiles about it, or maybe he does get fired up about it, but it seems too quickly resolved. Like I like that it is a legitimate story arc, and it does feel very arc-like. But yeah, I agree with what you said. You don't have to pigeonhole it with just this one thing. You could pretty much substitute it for anything, and it would be equally valid. I think just the idea that Lucha Underground does it at all is really the talking point here. And yeah, I hope they do it with whoever the next big guy is, who I think in a way is going to be like El Dragon Azteca Jr. for my money, but we'll see. But whoever it is, you know, they're going to go through a similar journey, I think, like Puma did. That's also unique because it's a completely different character. So that's my answer to that. We can move on to our next question.
All right, fourth and final question from Hypothesis. At this point, is Yamcha a worse Dragon Ball character than Chiaotzu?
Probably. I mean, granted, Chiaotzu never had a hilarious death like Yamcha did when he got impaled in the chest by Dr. Gero, because that was just fucking hysterical. So I
That
think
was in like
Yamcha's.
the original Dragon Ball series, though, not even Dragon Ball Z, right?
Yeah, he was in the original Dragon Ball series. I actually watched a video about that from Wisecrack recently, so it's funny you bring that
No,
up.
I mean like that death that happened in Dragon Ball, not
No,
Dragon Ball
no,
Z.
that
Right?
was Dragon Ball Z. No, you've never seen anything that graphic in Dragon Ball, dude. Get out of here. That was Dragon Ball Z. That was the Android saga. Yeah.
Dude.
But yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the sub version, but like the original Dragon Ball shows like dick and balls and boobs and stuff. Like,
Oh no, I mean, is it sexually gratuitous? Yes, but you were speaking more of like violence. I was talking about a guy getting impaled in the chest. I don't think it's ever gotten that violent. Sexually gratuitous? Oh hell yes. On the sexual side, yes, but violently, I don't ever remember it being that violent. Seeing the episodes as a kid, maybe I missed something.
well, no, I think the only reason that I thought that though is because I thought Doctor Gero was like one of the main villains in Dragon Ball. Am I thinking of someone else?
You might be thinking, where I know I don't want to speak for you, but you may be confused because Dr. Gero represented the Red Ribbon Army, and I know the Red Ribbon Army was a big part of Dragon Ball. But Dr.
Yeah,
Gero
but like, wasn't Doctor Gero the one that made that like really tall Frankenstein character in Dragon Ball?
He might have been, but I don't ever remember seeing Dr. Gero on screen in Dragon Ball. I can't even believe we're talking about this. But yeah, like I don't remember seeing him in an actual appearance. Maybe he was mentioned by name. I don't remember a physical appearance from him until Dragon Ball Z. There's got to be people that are even more hardcore fans than you and I of the show, and particularly me, because you know I'm the bigger anime guy, that can attest either in your camp or in mine. I just don't ever remember seeing him in Dragon Ball. If I'm wrong, I will admit that. But what I do know with certainty is that Yamcha death I was speaking about, that was DBZ. That was the Android Saga. And Chaozu, the only thing I can remember him doing was sacrificing himself for Tien against Nappa, which did absolutely nothing. But yeah, I think Yamcha's definitely worse. He definitely seems to get lampooned harder in the abridged series than Chaozu does. And yeah, I think he's just kind of that comic foil to everybody because he's just pretty much useless. So that's my answer to that. Got nothing else to add. I'm guessing you really don't have much to add, so I guess we can go on to our next question.
Yeah, all right. And I guess the Frankenstein character that I'm trying to think of is Android 8.
Yeah, Ader, I think, was his name, or what Goku called him in Dragon Ball. And yeah, you're right, Android 8.
Yeah. He went by Ader. And like, yeah, he was a Dr. Gero creation. So I want to say we did see Dr. Gero in Dragon Ball.
And again, like I do remember Android 8, but again, I don't ever remember physically seeing her. Again, he might have gotten referenced for sure if he was a Gero creation, which he was, but I don't know about a physical appearance. But regardless,
the only reason that I'm even bringing that up is because I distinctly remember a scene in Dragon Ball where they were having to like scale this tower. And by the time they made it to the top of the tower, it was this Frankenstein character. And I could have sworn Dr. Gero was there because he had to like activate the Frankenstein character in order for him to like come to life and start attacking Goku and friends.
You know what? I wonder if, because I'm doing something real quick to lay this to rest, because I know neither one of us will like stop thinking about it here. Let's see. No, they say, let me see. No, I'm looking up Dr. Gero's wiki, and it says that he only appears in DBZ and GT, but not Dragon Ball. I don't see a Dragon Ball listing here.
Okay, so, that's fair, yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing that he appeared in the Dragon Ball manga, but not in the anime.
Yeah, and I feel like we were talking about the anime. That was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were definitely talking about the anime. So I just, that's... All right, I guess we can move on then. Up next, we had Races Fan Rocks 4. First question, are you guys going to see the new Saw movie?
I'll probably watch it down the road when it becomes available, because I've watched most of the Saw movies, and even though I should say I haven't seen every single one in its entirety, some I've only watched like the gritty death scenes. But I gotta be honest, having loved the first one, I'd say the first Saw is still like one of my favorite horror movies ever. I'm too curious not to watch it, so you can put me as a yes, but way down the line. No way I'm not giving that like an official theatrical release, maybe when it comes out on DVD or something, or Netflix. If it hits it, that's when I'll do that. What about you, Ashton?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely. I am not going to see Saw. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the Saw franchise. I really liked the first Saw movie when I saw Saw, but since then I've kind of gone back and I think I might have rewatched it within the last few years, or it's just like the critical thought just thinking about the whole situation, I'm not like, in hindsight, it doesn't hold up in my eyes. I'm sure. I mean, John, you've already said you were still a big fan of it, so I'm sure I'm alone on that. But still, I'm not even a big fan, or as big a fan as I used to be, of the first movie. And I've only seen the first, second, and I think third movies. I don't think I've seen anything past three. I remember like whichever one it was where it was the traps were. There was like one that was like a box where the dumb bimbo reached up into it and she got
that
her
was the
hand
second
stuck.
one. That was the second one. Yeah.
And then I think the third one was the one where there was just one guy and he had to go through this warehouse and he ran into all these people that were set up in traps where if he wanted to, he could free them, but he had to go through sacrifice something of himself. And then it turned out that they were somehow related to his son's death. And it was like this whole thing where like one of them was like his opponent's defense lawyer. One of them was the judge that let the guy get off, and one of them was like the actual guy himself. I think it was like a hit and run on this guy's son or something like that. And yeah, so like he had to like choose, like, do you sacrifice something of yourself to let the man that lets your son's killer run free live, or do you sacrifice him, and that kind of thing. I think that was the third one. It might have been the fourth one, but I want to say it was the third one. Those are the ones that I've seen. And it's just like after the first, and the first one is only really good to me because that was kind of where we first got introduced to the psyche of Jigsaw. And that is like, to me, that's like the best element. And everyone's talking about like, oh, the twist ending at the end. It's like, yeah, fine, whatever. I'm not that much of a mark for twist endings. I think I used to be, but I'm not really anymore. But then like once you get past like the psychological aspect of like this guy survived this car crash and was on the brink of death and found a way to survive, and he had a new outlook on life and he wanted to help other people achieve that same new outlook on life that he had by putting them in near-death situations where if they survive, they'll get that like crazy new appreciation for life. That's interesting. It's hyper unrealistic, but it is interesting at least. And then after that first movie, it's all just torture porn.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally understand that criticism, and really, I hate how stupid some of the characters are. Because you mentioned the second one, which admittedly does have some unique traps, but I remember one guy just immediately tries bolting for the door, and he gets a shotgun right to the face, and then like you said, that dumb bitch is like, oh my god, the antidote! I can just reach in and what? And then she's just slicing her own arm up. You know what I call that? Natural selection at work, bitch. So, yeah, I totally get your criticism. But I can't wait to see what idiots will be found in the new one. Hopefully, it gets released on Netflix. That's the only real way I would watch it or even support it. So, next question from Racist Fan Rocks.
Next question from Racist Fan Rocks is, what are the most underrated WWE themes? And then he lists an example being the Miz theme.
Yeah, I would agree that that's underrated. I actually like Neville's newer theme. I think that's underrated by some.
So like the slowed down, darker version of his original theme?
Yeah, I think it's pretty bad.
You know what? Actually, since we're talking about underrated, I'm gonna mention Neville's actual original theme in not the current theme Break Orbit, the original theme in NXT that he had, because I loved that.
Yeah.
And the same goes for Sami Zayn, I think. Didn't he debut with a different theme as well? Or no, his was like a more generic theme, and then the new theme was amazing. But Neville had a really cool theme. And then Becky Lynch had a theme in between her River Dancer gimmick and her current theme that was called Anything You Want to Do. It was like, anything you want to do. Yeah. And it was like an upbeat rock song that was really good. I'm trying to think what else. Sheamus's theme right now is insanely underrated.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're taking all the really good ones. Let me think here. I don't really know if there's much that I can add.
Oh, Brandon Best brings up a great one. Corey Graves' old NXT theme.
Yeah.
I loved that song. I think it was called oh God, I don't even remember. You know what? I'm gonna Google that while you think.
I would say that Big E's like Can't Keep Still theme never really got enough love.
Oh yeah. Yes, that was so good in NXT. Yeah. Corey Graves' theme was called Christ Control, by the way.
Really actually like Tyson Kidd's theme, especially now that he's gone and I've like listened to it more. I'm like, you know what? It's got kind of that Christian vibe to it to me. Now that they had the male
quality. That's actually a really good connection, dude. Yeah, good call.
And yeah, I
dude, Sal brings up a good point. Like, I'm not super excited about this one, but the Social Outcasts, like, their theme was actually really good. The one that was like the do 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 do. But down. That was, I actually really enjoyed that. But yeah, Christ Control is the name of Corey Graves' theme by Cancer Killing Gemini. That was actually a really good one. What else? Let's see. What are you thinking, John?
I feel like I gave all the best answers because you've been giving so many good ones. Like, I don't even know like if I could offer up any more. I actually like Bo's theme when he first came up on the main roster because it just seems so perfect for the gimmick.
Bo's original theme in NXT was incredible.
I don't even remember the NXT one. I know the one that he changed it to I really liked. Maybe I have to go back and listen to the original one.
Let me see if I have Bo Dallas's theme on my phone. I'll play it briefly. And that's just like as a reminder. I'll play it for like less than 10 seconds just because obviously we want to avoid copyright. But yeah, I'll just play it for like 5-10 seconds. But in the meantime, think of other good themes that are underrated.
Good themes that are underrated.
Think. Go.
You know, it's funny. I would love to say Apollo Crews, but I don't like his theme. The theme that you showed me that could have been his theme, I would be saying that in a heartbeat. Like that whole Ready song. I don't get ready, I stay ready. It's that whole rap. Oh, that was so good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, that was so good. Like the fact that he didn't actually get that.
They just screwed him over in every possible way. They called him up prematurely. He's doing all right in Titus Brand, but I want the focus to go back on him. I don't even have anything.
Yeah, that's the thing, though, is like all the focus is on like Titus and Tozawa now, and like that's it. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't think Apollo Crews is like this elite performer who deserves to be pushed to the moon or anything, but he's really good in the ring, and he has a mouthpiece now, so he doesn't even need to be good at talking. Do something with him. Like the fact that he isn't basically being treated as almost like the Sami Zayn of Raw, where he's like that mid-card to upper mid-card guy who loses sometimes, but like he sells really well, and when he gets these big wins, it's a big deal. Like that's kind of what I would want to see out of him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think those are all the answers that I can give. Unless you have any more you want to offer, I'm ready to move on to the next question.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of other themes because, oh yeah, that's right. I actually have a playlist, believe it or not. I have a playlist of some of my favorite themes. It's literally just called Badass Wrestling Themes.
Okay.
Let me go find it. It's older because I haven't touched it in a while, but it is on my channel. Shit. Let me see. Badass Wrestling Themes. There we go. Okay, so it's Becky, Owens, Finn, Sammy, Paige's theme, Sheamus, Baron Corbin's theme, which is, I will say, John, I want you to know, I listened to Corbin's new theme on YouTube in like a cleared up way that isn't like, oh, well, let's just listen to this theme while a bunch of crowd noise is going on. Right. And it's actually really good. Like I think I misjudged it at first because the original video that I saw of it was fan shot and it was just not very good quality. But then like, not only do I like it, but then somebody on the Squared Circle subreddit made an edit of a Corbin entrance with the Superhuman theme as like his actual entrance, where like it's got like, you know, the spotlights that turn red and then the lights turn on, and it's the that like whole setup, but with the new theme to it, and it was absolutely incredible. I want it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
All right, so now I think I can play. Here we go. Here's Bo Dallas's NXT theme very briefly.
Okay, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of it, but it kind of had a breakdown, but I don't want to play it too much longer for risk of copyright. And then the only other one that I will mention, we already talked about Neville's Faceless theme, which was great. Leo Kruger, though. Leo Kruger's theme song when he was Leo Kruger was, just impeccable. So good.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Remember, I really liked that theme, but there's actually a lyrical version of it online that was really freaking good too. That's the one that's like the it's anyway. It's but then there's a lyrical version, and then I also just because I randomly plug shit, I made an edit of his theme using Karma. When she was in WWE, her theme was always amazing to me, and I replaced her laughs with Leo Kruger's psycho laughs. So I actually have that on the channel. I think it might not even be on this channel. It might be on my tributes channel. So anyway, we can move on now. We spent a really long time on that question. 5 least favorite sports.
Even though I've grown a bit more of an appreciation for it, thanks to my co-owner commentary here, still don't care much for curling, golf, professional. Don't sigh at me.
I just did.
Professional diving. You know how they do in the Olympic sports. Like, oh, how much of a splash do they make?
That's not how professional diving works.
Well, you know, I feel like that's one criteria, right? Like, oh,
no, splash isn't a thing. They don't really take. I mean, really, if anything, it's the opposite. The minimum splash, the better, because when you splash, it means
that's what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm
saying. Like the more splash there is, the worse your technique probably is. So yeah,
that's what I was getting at. But regardless, like it bores me. So yeah, curling, golf, that. God, what would be?
I can't believe you still don't like curling. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, your face. What was a fourth sport? Because I really don't even watch many sports outside of football, and even then, it's only the Falcons. So I guess you could say on some level, all sports bore me, and I've given quite a few a chance. Like boxing, I really don't see the appeal, if I'm honest. And I know there was that big thing recently with McGregor and Mayweather. I just really didn't care. And what else? I guess volleyball. So yeah, that'll be the 5 for me.
See, and the ironic thing is, like, a lot of sports I don't watch, but if you have it on the TV, I find a way to get into it. But here are the ones that I don't. Number 1, golf. Number 2, baseball. Number 3, anything that's anything like either of those sports.
Yeah.
I can get into ping pong. I can get into tennis. I can get into soccer. I can get into hockey. I can get into basketball. I can get into curling, like I've already mentioned. I mean, what was the third sport that you mentioned most recently?
I mentioned the Olympic diving is one.
No, okay, well, you know what? I was actually going to say figure skating is one that I'm not into. And then, oh shit, sorry about that, guys. I keep on putting my phone on my computer, and when it buzzes, it probably is really annoying for you guys. So I just took it off. Like toboggan kind of stuff, like sleds. That kind of stuff where you're just racing down a hill. I'm not really into that. Right. But really anything else, like if it's a sport, if it's competitive, boxing, that's a good one. I'm not into boxing at all. Like at all. I don't care about boxing whatsoever.
Yeah, too slow for me. I just never really cared for it. There was like one boxing fight that I've ever liked.
Oh, racing too. If it's not like human people racing, like if we're talking like horse racing or car racing, I don't give a shit.
And actually, Ashton, you did bring up a good point. I'm going to take volleyball on my list and swap it with baseball because
volleyball! Volleyball is the one that you were mentioning. I could totally get into a volleyball game, and it doesn't even need to be beach volleyball with hot ladies. It can be any kind of volleyball whatsoever. I love playing volleyball, so I can get into watching a game of volleyball.
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly, I think I'll swap that out because I think I was unnecessarily harsh on that, but I hate baseball on television. Like I've never liked it. So yeah, baseball's taking that spot. And there's no.
Oh, and since we are, we got a mention in chat of CS:GO and League of Legends. I will say, competitive MOBA games, whether it's League of Legends or any game that falls into the MOBA category, not Paladins. Smite is another one. I just don't care about the MOBA gameplay style. I'm not into that at all. But that's not to say I can't get into esports because, like, I love watching Super Smash Bros. Melee, competitive fighting games like that. I enjoy watching competitive, like the what do you call the team-based FPS games like Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch and that kind of stuff. Like I can watch that and that's fun. And even I'm not big into FPS games, but if there's really high level play, I can definitely get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people that can get into just about any sport, but the few exceptions are like, yeah, golf is a big exception. Baseball, I don't. And the thing is, like, I've noticed that a lot of sports that I can get into it because I've been there before. I played that, and I have like been in those shoes. I've experienced it, so it's like I kind of know what's going on. I played baseball when I was younger, like for an actual team, and I still hate it. Like, it's just so boring to me.
Yeah. What's funny is like there's one that I find boring watching, but I actually had fun doing it when I used to go. Bowling is another one I can't get into watching.
I love bowling.
Yeah, I can enjoy playing it, but watching it is just too much.
Oh, you know what? I'll sign on to that. Yeah, it's too slow paced for sure.
Yeah. So
whereas like when you're playing, the thing is like when you're playing bowling, it's not just, oh, this is fun because I'm bowling. It's more like, oh, this is fun because I'm out with my family and or friends and we're all bowling and we get to talk to each other and like pick on people when they have a bad throw or be like all celebratory with everyone when someone bowls a strike and stuff like that. Like, that's fun.
Yeah.
But just like watching random old guys that are really good at bowling do their thing is boring as hell.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think we sufficiently answered.
It's funny too because like I was even thinking about just being like, redneck sports. I'm not into redneck sports, but then like at the same time, like the state sport of Texas might as well be football. Like, Texas is all about football, so I can't say that I dislike all redneck sports because in a roundabout way, and really in a sort of an obvious way, if you think about it, football is a redneck sport, unfortunately. But still, the other ones, baseball and NASCAR, sports that you can really enjoy while drunk, I'm not into them.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate assessment.
All right, so next, fourth and final question from Racist Fan Rocks 4. Video games / movies you're hyped for 2018. And then he specified that his were Anthem and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Good question about the games, but I can't tell you yet. And I only say it's a good question because, again, with my upgrade, my possibilities have also upgraded. So I'll be definitely keeping a lookout for the hot titles of 2018. Because I know even stuff that I'd be excited about now but could never feasibly play, like, for example, Super Mario Odyssey, that's coming out in 2 months. So that's still 2017. So I really don't know much about the 2018 scene. For movies, though, I mean, Ashton, right? Avengers,
Infinity War, yes.
Infinity War. I was going to say
Black
Civil
Panther, Deadpool 2, Incredibles 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp, The Predator.
Yeah, so 2018 shows are fucking hype. Oh, by the way, Jessica Jones season 2 is slated for 2018. Last I heard, Jessica Jones, my favorite Netflix series. What was that?
Aquaman,
who, I mean, looks like it's gonna fucking own. So yeah, on the movie side and on the show side,
from what I understand, Jurassic World 2 is set for a late 2018 release as well. So I'll toss that in there.
Yeah, as far as 2018, the only game I could think of, if it's for a 2018 release, is the new DBZ game that has that Marvel vs. Capcom type aesthetic. Called Z Fighters. I am hyped as fuck for that. I know Chris, my sister's boyfriend, he's hyped for that too, because he's like, that's the DBZ game I've always wanted. I don't think I've been that hyped for a DBZ game since Budokai Tenkaichi 3, which for a lot of fans still ranks as the overall like best game that they've produced. But yeah, that looks really cool. So that'd be the only game I'd put forward. But yeah, I've really got to peruse titles that are coming out next year, because there may be a lot that I'm looking to get in on. I'm quite excited about it. But yeah, shows, it is a stacked front. I mean, actually, is there anything else? Because I know you pretty much helped me answer my side of the question.
Well, the thing is, he didn't even say shows. He didn't say shows. He just said video games and movies. So
true, and it was like 98% movies. I just tacked on Jessica Jones like something I'm hyped for. But yeah, movies though still stacked, and you pretty much gave like all the best ones. So is there anything else you want to move on?
Really, the only video game I can think of is the Pokemon game for the Nintendo Switch. That should be really cool.
Yeah.
But other than that, no. I'm really, like, the games that I play most often are older games. I don't really play new games very often. Like, even, like, right now, the 2 games that I play with the highest frequency are Rocket League, which has been around for a few years now, and Brawlhalla, which has been around for a few years now. So, like, yeah, I just don't really tend to play new games when they come out. I just am not on that bandwagon.
And I'm looking to get back on that bandwagon, so hopefully I'll be giving more detailed answers about video game questions in the future. But in the meantime, I guess we can move on to our next question.
All right, next up, we have a third question from the outsider that was asked after the other two, obviously, because the other two were from July. And technically, this one was also asked in July, but it was asked after our Q&A that we already had in July. So, question from the outsider for WrestleMania 36. Okay. And the reason for this is because WrestleMania's 6, 16, and 26, I believe, have all had hosts. So for WrestleMania 36, instead of announcing who the host is, they would the WWE hypes up, oh, it's a former WWE champion hosting it, and they don't reveal who it is until WrestleMania 36 starts. They, avoid dirt sheet information and all that stuff, and then it ends up being CM Punk. What would you think about that?
I actually think that'd be clever in a way. Like, I think for a lot of people, they'd get mad because it's like, oh, what? You're going to have CM Punk return like this? But to me, I think there's a part of me that would appreciate that because it's like, wow, we're just going to tickle your balls a little bit more before we allow you to release because, everybody would be asking, okay, well, Punk was the host. What's he going to do in 24 hours? And then if you really want to make a splash, the post-WrestleMania Raw has become bigger, in my mind, in some ways than WrestleMania itself. So then you just go that next step, right? And then you really have him make his impact on the post-WrestleMania Raw. So yeah, I think that would be both like a great middle finger, but also a piece of marketing genius. Because for as many people as ranting and raving, if they knew Punk would be on the show after, which I would bet the house he would be, like they'd tune in anyway. So yeah, I'd be totally cool with him hosting, and I think it would raise more questions than answers, which in that moment I think you want to do for the sake of your product. So yeah, I'd approve of that.
Oh man, and see, this is a situation for me where I would be more disappointed than anything because I want him anywhere but back in WWE right now.
That is true. Like, if I had it my way, obviously, like, I'd make everybody happy. Well, most people. And put him in Lucha Underground because I know how passionate, like, especially to Joseph in interviews, if you hear him, would be about working with CM Punk. Yeah. But, yeah, if he was going to return to WWE, I would personally like that for all the reasons I mentioned. But you said that you'd be disappointed. Anything else you want to say about that? Or
not really. Like I said, it's just one of those situations where it's like, man, Punk comes back and he just goes back to the ex that idolized him,
Yeah.
Like, go find that sexy new young lady rather than going back to the one that beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, there you go. Jesus. All right, I'm ready for the next question. What do we got?
All right, we have 3 questions from, I believe, a new question asker here, Catherine Alexander.
Ooh, okay.
Right, first question is who or what, I should say, not who. What are your top 3 favorite NXT TakeOver matches for each gender? So top 3 favorite men's matches, top 3 favorite women's matches.
I'd say one that I think is underrated in a lot of circles would be Tyson Kidd versus Neville in their NXT Championship match right before Tyson turned heel. I thought that was a very technically sound bout. I think it allowed Tyson to show just how great he really is. And yeah, I thought that was just fantastic. I would say also, let me think, the top 3 favorite TakeOver, like men's bouts, definitely DIY versus the Revival. What TakeOver show was that where DIY actually won the titles? With the
Toronto, I think.
Toronto, yeah, that was excellent. And let me think about what else. Honestly, I would say as far as like a women's match goes, well, actually, no, I still want to give one more men's. That's right, before I go on to women's. Maybe, honestly, I'll just go with recency bias because I really enjoyed it. Hideo Itami versus Aleister Black, I thought was really like insanely good. The kind of bout that I was wanting for them to have. So yeah, recency bias for sure, but I'll go with it. As far as women's bouts, definitely Sasha Bailey because that was so freaking good. Emma versus Asuka. I believe that was what, TakeOver London?
London, yes. That's going to be on my list.
I mean, that was so fucking good. And honestly, even Ember and Asuka's most recent match at Brooklyn 3, like I thought their rematch was better than their original match. And Ember got a standing O afterwards. Like I thought both women got what they needed to out of that match. Well, I mean, not so much Asuka. She did get injured. But, I mean, you get what I mean. So, yeah, I think I'll go with that match for my third women's match. And, yeah, that caps me off. So, now you go. 3 favorite men's, 3 favorite women's. What do you got?
Okay, for my 3 favorite men's matches, I'm going to go... It's funny, you said recency bias, because I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm going to say Sami Zayn versus Cesaro in their 2 out of 3 falls, I think it was.
Nice.
And then for my second match, I'm going to say Sami Zayn versus Neville at TakeOver R Evolution.
Okay.
And then for my third match, I'm just going to sign right on with you, but I'm going to change it up a little because you went Revival DIY 2 out of 3 falls, right?
Well, yeah, because that's where they won the titles, and that's what I specified.
Yeah, I'm going Revival DIY AOP triple threat on the next show.
Ah, okay.
Because to me, like the storytelling in that, with the 2 teams of smaller guys that have been rivals for probably going on a year at that point, teaming up to try and take down this monster heel team, and even to the extent that they used each other's finishers intermingling within the teams, where it was Gargano and Dawson doing Meeting in the Middle or PCS, which I prefer, and then Ciampa and Wilder doing the Shatter Machine. Like, that was just such a freaking incredible experience, being able to watch that match and live react to it as it was happening, that I will probably never forget that. And I think that's probably my favorite match just overall in NXT history.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from there.
And then for the women, it's actually really easy because it's just pick your favorite Sasha Banks matches. Sasha Becky from TakeOver Unstoppable. Sasha, Becky, Bayley, Charlotte, the 4-way from, I want to say, TakeOver Rival. Oh, no, that was at R Evolution, wasn't it? That was at R Evolution, I think.
Yeah, I believe you're right about that.
But that 4-way, it was the 4-way that Sasha won the belt. And that was probably the best women's match NXT had up until that point, for sure. And then for my third match, Sasha Bayley, Brooklyn. So that was easy. And then, yeah, there's no more than that. That was 3. That's it. So, yeah, the 4-way, Sasha Becky, and Sasha Bayley.
All right. Next question from Catherine.
All right. Next question from Catherine Alexander. Second question, how would you book a Sasha Banks heel turn?
I mean, well, honestly, I feel like WWE's already kind of planted the seeds. I mean, she just lost the title back to Alexa Bliss after 8 days. So, I think you have Bayley come back from injury, beat Alexa for it. Then you have Sasha make a friendly challenge to Bayley, but I wouldn't have her turn heel in the first title defense of Bayley. I would actually have Sasha win clean as a babyface, but what I would have is on the rematch, because Sasha knows her own history and because she really wants to silence the critics, she cheats to finally retain her title on her first defense. So I would kind of do a switcheroo. It's not so much winning the title where she turns heel, it's keeping it, because she knows that she's never been capable of keeping it with her past actions, and Sanity's doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So Sasha says, I've got to change tactics if I want to be a different kind of champion. And that's my story for a Sasha Banks heel turn, just without really getting into any crazy specifics and going month by month and all that crap. Just very straightforward. She turns heel because she knows it's the only way she can keep a championship rather than just constantly losing it. So what about you, Ajin?
I would kind of maybe do a little bit of more like a long play where I would have Bayley return from her injury and I would have her beat Alexa, but I would kind of do almost like a repeat of what happened in the Bayley-Alexa feud earlier this year, where Sasha comes out before the end of the match and it seems like she wants to help Bayley and she doesn't actually do anything in the match, but then after the match is over, when Bayley's celebrating, Sasha gets in the ring with her. And then as Bayley is turning to walk up the ramp, Sasha clobbers her from behind exactly the same way that she did to Paige to turn heel in NXT.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, because like that, I'll never get that image of Sasha attacking Paige in NXT out of my mind. That's because to me, that's the moment the Boss was born. Like, that was the moment that my favorite female performer in WWE became what would eventually become my favorite female performer in WWE. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was Yeah, I would love for that to happen. All right, so let's continue. That was a great question. I'm very glad she asked that. Third and final question from Catherine Alexander. What's your favorite stipulation in WWE?
I've always been a sucker for an Iron Man match. I don't know why. I just get giddy when I know one's going down. Not so much in recent years, but growing up as a kid, like two Iron Man matches that stand out in my mind. Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle on SmackDown. And I remember that because there was a huge storm going on. So I was afraid, like, all throughout the match that we were going to lose power. But we actually ended up losing power right as the match ended. So I got to see it, and we ended up still losing power. But I got my wrestling, and that's all I gave a shit about. Like, as a kid, every time I would hear about, like, storms or whatever, I was always like, well, is that going to interfere with SmackDown tonight? Like, I didn't think about life loss or flooding. Like, fuck that. Is it going to interfere with my SmackDown viewing for 2 hours? So, yeah, definitely Brock, Angle, and then Benoit, Triple H, his last world title defense before SummerSlam where he dropped the door. Like, I've just always been a sucker for really great 60-minute Iron Man matches. So, yeah, I think that's my favorite step.
Keeping it a little bit more simple, my favorite stipulation is Falls Count Anywhere, and especially when it's used properly, because I absolutely love when wrestlers are able to fight throughout the crowd and up the ramp, and especially going into the backstage area and the parking lot. And we really haven't seen that in a while, but going outside the arena completely.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Like, those are all my favorite moments to me. Like, it's, Austin, and I think it was Austin and Rock did it. Cena and Edge did it. Yeah, like, those are, to me, those are like my favorite moments, is when these people hate each other so much that not only can the ring not contain them, but the arena can't contain them.
Right.
I love that. And I will say it is kind of a throwback, too, because of the Luke Harper-Dean Ambrose match, where not only did they leave the arena, but they got in the car and left everything.
Yeah. Oh, man, I still wish we had a camera following them around through all that. That would have been pretty
Yeah. All right, so up next, we've got 4 questions from Rotten Butter. First one, as usual, standard cool shit that you've seen, watched, or played over the course of the last month.
Well, I just finished Revenge on Netflix with the family. It's like this soap opera type show that aired on ABC for several years, and it's really good. It definitely has that addictive quality to it. On the animation front, I was telling Ashley about this a little bit ago, but now I can go a bit more in depth. I binged hardcore because they are in like season 5. Thankfully, only 4 episodes in. But I binged Steven Universe. So I finally watched all of it, and I gotta say, like, I don't know if I finished it within a month. I feel like I did. Because I feel like not a day went by that I didn't watch at least a single episode. And yeah, it's insanely good. I get what all the hype is about. I think it's an amazing show with incredible messages. I think it's a bit slow to start, but you know what I've noticed these days is I feel like a lot of the shows that I really fall in love with always have a rough start, but once they really find their footing and know what they want to be about, man, do they soar. And yeah, that's really how I would describe this show. What else have we been doing? We started the latest season of Shameless, but we stopped because, again, revenge binging, because it was going to leave Netflix, and it has left Netflix now because it was leaving the 28th. What else have we been watching? You and I did Iron Fist most recently. We're currently doing the Defenders. No spoilers. We're finishing Defenders tonight. Been playing more 2K16, playing more. I haven't touched Hitman in a while. I should. I feel like I'm on the latter half of the game. I can't really think of much else in terms of like watching, because yeah, I'm sure there was like a lot, but those are the things that really stick out that really made my month great. So yeah, that's the cool shit I've done this month. What about you, man?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, I was going to mention Iron Fist and the Defenders, because that's really the only stuff that I can think of other than just keeping up with Rick and Morty every week.
Yes, Rick and Morty, that's a big one. Yes, oh my god, this past episode.
I'm Pickle Rick!
Pickle Rick! God, do you think anybody but me can do that, Morty? God, Toxic Rick for the win.
The reason that somebody would do this, which they can't, would be because they could, which they can't.
Yes.
I love Rick and Morty. But then I'll also say, game-wise, you and I have been playing Rocket League quite frequently lately, and I'm addicted.
Yeah. He's getting insanely good, people. This guy's becoming a beast. So,
Bullet Club versus the Shield just posted a pickle. It's a cucumber, but it's close enough to a pickle emoji in chat.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man! All right, guys. So yeah, that's about all I can think of.
Next question from Rotten Butter.
Yeah, next question. It said this was exclusively for you, John. And it's, have you seen the anime Kino's Journey, which is Kino no Tabi in Japanese? He said this is the most philosophically minded anime I've ever seen, and no, this isn't a thinly veiled recommendation disguised as a question, and I'm insulted you would even think that's such a thing.
First of all, I didn't. Okay, maybe a little. We'll talk about it later in Divorce Court, but mainly, yes, I've seen it, and it is fucking amazing. I remember when I was a part of this philosophy forum. I'm not so much anymore because the threads have become like toxic. I think I visited the site a few months ago just to see what was going on, and I'm so glad I left to actually do things that, you know, actually matter, rather than just pointless internet discussions. But I remember when I was still active on there because I was still so new to philosophy, and I just wanted to be a part of anything, you know, podcasts, forums, like all that stuff. And I did a thread dedicated to that anime. I called it the Kino Problem because one episode. And I'm not going to do any spoilers because if anybody's like me and they like a more thought-provoking, sometimes fucked up anime, I highly recommend Kino's Journey. And I hope Rotten Butter's smiling with this response that I'm so enthusiastic. But yeah, you're not wrong. It is definitely one of the most philosophically substantive anime. There is one episode where, again, I don't want to get too specific, but like the moral dilemmas in it, any first-year moral philosophy student or anybody taking an ethics class, it is just a puzzle that I think they could play with for hours. I know I did when I first started. Yeah, it's an amazing anime. I love like philosophical media. That's why I do like popular culture books and stuff. And anime is a big part of that. And Kino's Journey, yeah, is definitely one of the crown jewels. I adore that anime. It's been forever since I watched it. I may be due for a rewatch because, man, some of the stuff is just gut punching, and oh my god, it's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, I've seen it and I love it, Rotten Butter, for sure.
Okay, so this next one is going to be really interesting because Rotten Butter wants us to cut a promo on each other.
I don't even, what's the conflict? What's the story? I feel like anybody else that wants us to cut a promo, like there's at least some substance. Like, oh, cut it on people that are bemoaning Kaepernick because he does this, or cut it. Like I know Jarveris later asked a promo question and he gave some direction. What's our direction? What do we have?
I'm just going to read what he wrote word for word. He said, "I want you two to cut a promo on each other. Make it savage, boys. Pull no punches." That's all he said.
I don't know, man. Jesus. How would I even start that? Because I have no beef with you. I feel like my best promos come with people that I have a legitimate beef with, or I can at least conjure some beef with. Like, I don't have the heart to do that to you. Like, it's one thing to give you a complex. It's you know?
James, shut the hell up. I'm not into bestiality, you prick.
Oh, wait, what did he ask? I should slept with your dog. You know, honestly, though, like, even if he did, I probably deserved it. I don't know. It's weird. Look, I will readily admit that there are times that I am emotionally abusive to this man, but it's only because I have a duty to uphold his complex. But I think that's different, though, from a promo. And to be fair, he could get some quips on me, too, but he's never gone full-blown promo on my ass. I don't know. I don't have the heart to do it. I choose friendship, damn it. So, yeah, that's my answer to that.
Yeah, we're not your slaves. We don't have to just do everything you say just because you asked it in a Q&A. We can still refuse after a lighthearted banter discussion.
Exactly, yeah. Just because you're rotten butter doesn't mean everything else in the fridge has to go to shit. So, what's our next question?
Yeah, the next one. This is the second time in a row he's done this. The second question, or the fourth and final question, actually, from Rotten Butter. Do you think love can bloom even on a battlefield? And before you even try answering this, John, I'm just going to let you know this is a Metal Gear Solid reference. So last month it was some kind of another something or other reference. We asked a question. I think it was a Monty Python reference. Yeah, it was a Monty Python reference. And now this month it's a Metal Gear Solid reference. So
I don't know. All love dies eventually. So if it blooms on a battlefield, I mean, you better hope that you can do the wedding and the honeymoon in all one fell swoop because she's probably going to get shot in the back of the head. So I don't know what to tell you.
Hey, man, who said there has to be a she involved?
Well, I mean, nobody. I mean, I guess that was just my assumption. But either way, the partner, whether it's male
don't ask, don't tell.
Well, yeah, there you. I mean, yeah, whoever it is, male, female, whatever, they're probably going to get shot in the back of the head. The other person's probably going to get
I mean,
blown
we
up.
know for a fact that they're not going to be transgender thanks to Trump.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. Even though I heard recently that did get halted, but regardless.
Oh,
yeah.
did it? Oh, that's good. But it's still
Yeah.
disgusting that our president would even try something like that.
Yeah, of course it is. And I think it's even more disgusting that people are like, oh, you know, because I've heard some people in the trans community like, well, we weren't going to serve imperialist interests anyway. Like, it's a really messy issue, but I've read some trans perspectives on it, and yeah, Trump's a piece of shit. But regardless, back to the central question. You better hope that it lasts, okay? You better hope that, like, neither one of you dies, because, like, I feel like that's pretty crazy. But, I mean, I think I have heard stories of that happening in all seriousness. So, yes, actually, it is possible, but I'm not really thinking about love connection. I'm thinking about surviving the war if I'm in a battle, right? Like, I'm just like, yeah, there'll be plenty of time for love when I'm back in a non-war zone where I can comfortably live in my own skin. So yes, it's possible, but I don't know what you're looking for, bro. You're a weird egg, Ron Butter. You're a weird egg.
And I'm not actually, we know it's a Metal Gear Solid reference, but I am going to answer the question as if it was an actual real question. No, I don't think love can bloom on a battlefield, but I do think that infatuation and lust can bloom on a battlefield because you're out there fighting in the trenches with these people and you form a very artificial bond with them that goes away the second you step off the battlefield. So no, I don't think real love can bloom on a battlefield, but lust and infatuation absolutely can.
Pretty reasonable answer. Next question.
We've got 3 questions from Zane Banks. I believe this is only his second or third time submitting questions, so it's good to know we have a new regular. First question for both of us. Do you agree that WWE pay-per-views aren't special now that they have the same set as Raw, SmackDown, and that they use pay-per-views to build up Raw and SmackDown rather than the other way around?
Again, don't really care about sets. I feel like...
Dude, you know what? I think that there's still substance in this that does make it different than our question earlier from Sal. I think it was from Sal about the sets. But I think that the bigger overlying issue here is that he mentioned using pay-per-views to build up Raw and SmackDown. And yeah, I have a huge problem with that. Because to me, if you have a pay-per-view structure, which I think is antiquated in the first place, but if you have a pay-per-view structure, you should be using your television shows to build up to the pay-per-view events, not the other way around. And while WWE does use their TV shows to build their pay-per-views for sure, they go way too far out of their way on said pay-per-views to then continue building to the next episode of Raw or SmackDown.
That I would readily agree with. That, I think, is a legitimate criticism, and you're right. Like, that is where the question finds its substance. Because, and you see a lot, too, which I hate this, like, on some pay-per-views, you'll get, sometimes maybe just 1 or 2, but other times I feel like a lot more than that, repeats of pay-per-view matches on the Raw or SmackDown product. And it's like, well, what was the point of the pay-per-view then? So, yeah, that is definitely a worthwhile criticism and one that I readily co-sign to, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so then second question from Zane Banks, and this is it's getting weird because the next 2 questions are both sex related, but just roll with it, I guess. First question is just for me. Would you have a threesome with Charlotte and Natalya if it meant getting rid of them on television for good? And there's also a caveat here that if you don't do this, they'll be main eventers in their respective women's divisions forever. I think I'll take one for the team here.
Yeah, I knew you would. I think you'd be like, well, somebody's got to do it, and it seems like it's gonna be me.
Yeah, like that's the it's gonna be me. No, but like that's the thing though, is that if it means getting them off TV for good, just one time. I mean, here's the thing: they're not overly repulsive by any means. It's not like you're asking me to have sex with a freaking, jungle animal or anything. They're still relatively attractive female humans, so it's not the biggest horrible thing in the world. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, another sensible answer, and look at this guy right here taking one on the chin to spare our women's divisions.
Okay, next question is just for you, and it's another one of these situations where you're having sex with someone, so you have to have sex with either Sasha Banks or Naomi which, I mean, yeah, that's a good thing. But the downside is whichever one you choose to have sex with has to retire from wrestling.
Ooh. Ooh. You know what? I'd say Naomi. I do Naomi because I know how passionate Sasha is. Plus, here's the thing. Even though Naomi also is married, so yeah, either way, I'm a homewrecker. That's really not good. But I feel like Naomi, she could fall back on other stuff. But I mean, Sasha, all she's wanted to do is wrestle, and like I don't have the heart in me to take that away from her. Now you could probably make the same argument. Well, what if all Naomi wanted to do was wrestle? I don't know. I probably wouldn't be able to live with myself, but I'm just gonna.
You know what? I'm with you though, because like to me, Naomi could be like a freaking dancer for a basketball team, or she's got more going on. Sasha only knows wrestling. Like Naomi, she's got her music video. Like she made her own theme song. Like she's got other prospects. Sasha doesn't, and Sasha is better wrestling than Naomi. So really it comes down to personal preference for appearance. But even then, like, even though I'm more physically attracted to Sasha, I would still take Naomi because of the professional implications of it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, really, the real loss here is that I'm cheating on James, but I'll have to deal with that in therapy like I do everything else. So, was that the last question, or was there another question, like from that particular set? I mean,
no, those were the 3 from Zane Banks, and we can move on. Our next 4 are from Super Blue. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
First one is for you, so we've got to kind of handle this exact. What would it take for you to believe in the heart of the cards and be Taya Gardner's friend?
To have a lobotomy. I have to be anything but in my right mind to do that horse shit. So yeah, to have a lobotomy would be the best way. Next question.
Oh my god. Okay. Next question is just for me. And he does specify I'm not allowed to pick the Falcons. So that is the number 1 qualifier here. I am not allowed to pick the Falcons. Otherwise, I would. Who wins the Super Bowl this year? And if it can't be the Falcons, then the team that I am going to pick to win the Super Bowl this year. Oh, God. I really don't want to pick the freaking Patriots again. I don't want to give the Steelers another ring. Oh, God damn it. You know what? The Chiefs. Let's send the Chiefs to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
On Patrick Mahomes is back. That's right, guys. Alex Smith is getting injured in week 8. And the Chiefs will be like 5-3 at that point, and then they will finish the season 13-3 because they go undefeated over the last 8 weeks on the arm of Patrick Mahomes, and then they win the Super Bowl. The first ever rookie quarterback to win the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes.
That sounds beastly as hell.
Yeah. New Brett Favre, Patrick Mahomes.
All right, and who are they facing again, or did you not say yet?
I didn't say because it doesn't matter, because it can't be the Falcons, and that would be, maybe, you know what? Whose heart do I want to break the most? Let's give the Panthers another defeating Super Bowl crushing loss.
All right. Sounds good, man.
Because, man, I got to tell you, coming off that Denver win over Carolina a year ago, I imagine that's what it felt like to be a Saints fan after the Falcons blew the 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah. God, that was tough.
Let's have the Panthers blow a 31-3 lead against the Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes is unstoppable.
There you go.
Oh man. Sal. Up next, third question from Super Blue. Will New Japan create a women's roster in the future? Easy answer for me. They basically already have. It's called Stardom.
Yeah. I honestly didn't know about that connection. Even though I know what Stardom is, I didn't know that was. They're not as closely related as like Evolve and Shine,
because those are both owned by Gabe Sapolsky. Like they're owned by the same guy, and he obviously runs both. But there is a very, very friendly working relationship between New Japan and Stardom.
Yeah, so all right then, because I honestly was going to say yes with the U.S. expansion. and knowing that women's wrestling's like stock in the U.S. seems to be climbing, I thought that New Japan would look into it. But I mean, I guess they could just do something with Stardom and problem solve. So yeah, I'll just piggyback off your answer there simply because I was ignorant of that fact. So next question.
Fourth and final question from Super Blue. Have you two ever met in person, and do you plan to? No and yes.
Yeah, pretty much. When money is no longer an issue and the world sucks less, then I think it'll finally happen. So next question.
You know, I don't think we need to wait for the world to suck less. I think we just need to wait for the money situation to get right.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So up next, we've got two questions from Aladdin Paladin. First off, in 10 years, will Reigns Strowman be considered one of the greatest rivalries of this generation? And Aladdin Paladin personally believes it will.
I agree with him, actually. That might surprise some people, but I think the work they've done has been excellent enough. I don't even think I'm not finished with you, again, by the shirt. I don't think they're finished with each other yet. Like, if it was up to me, and I know it's not going to happen because all signs seem to be pointing to Reigns, Brock, but I would have WrestleMania 34. If Reigns had to go over, be with Strowman as the big bad, because why not give them a big WrestleMania match to kind of cap off their feud? Like, I think they have great chemistry. They've done crazy things together, and I hope they only continue to raise the bar. And I think because every generation looks at their product with rose-colored glasses, I think that's one thing that they'll constantly point to say, see, we were freaking awesome, and they'd have every right to, because I think the work has been great. So I'm actually going to say yes to that. I agree with Aladdin Paladin there.
All right. Did I answer this question?
No,
I don't think I did.
I was waiting for you to answer. It was
so, yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm going to say no. But it might, even like, if Reigns Strowman as a feud ended right now, would it go down as one of the best rivalries of this generation? It might, if for no other reason because it gave birth to I'm Not Finished With You Yet.
Yeah.
Like, that might be all it takes for this to be like, wow, that it really is. Like, what an iconic feud. But I don't think that they're going to have a longer lasting feud. Like, if I had to guess over the next 10 years, these guys will probably be feuding for like maybe 18 combined months over the next 10 years.
Right.
I don't think that's long enough for it to be considered one of the best rivalries of this generation. So since you did put the qualifier one of the best in there, I'll say yes. But the best, I don't think so, no.
Well, the best, I would say no as well. But because of that qualifier, absolutely.
Yeah. Because like one of the best, you could say like top 5, top 10, and I would say, yeah, probably. I don't know about top 5 even, but top 10 probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. Absolutely.
Next, second and final question from Aladdin Paladin. I think that one day Dash Wilder can be a world champion. Am I insane, or am I actually onto something here? John, I'll let you handle this.
I would never call anybody insane, even for a view that's that out there, because you never know what.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, and then I will. You're insane.
But I will say, in my personal opinion, if anybody in that team would even have singles potential, which to be honest, I really don't see that much in either of them, but it would definitely be Scott Dawson to me. Because I think he's better than Dash for me, where it really counts, and that's on the mic. So, I don't think it'll ever happen. But do I think you're insane? No, because I never thought there'd be a point where I like The Miz, and I think he's one of the best guys in WWE right now. So I think anything can happen, in a career. And hell, Jinder Mahal's WWE champion. So, and even though, again, we know for certain reasons why, you just can't say, oh, that guy's never going to be anything. So I don't think it'll happen, but I don't think you're insane either. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's fair. I the only reason that I said, oh, no, you're insane was just because it was like John was being all timid about it. I just wanted to come right out and be like, no, I think you're crazy. You're stupid. That's nuts. That's never going to happen. But no. I mean, realistically, anything can happen, but if we're being honest with ourselves, the odds of Dash Wilder, of all people, who is like 5'11", who has a dad bod, who is a great wrestler, but no discernible personality, the odds of that guy, of all people, getting a world title run at any point ever in WWE are slim to none. I honestly think, since we're talking revival, Scott Dawson has a better chance than Dash Wilder, I think. Because to me, like, Scott Dawson has a more interesting look, and we already know he's way better on the mic.
Yeah, which is, that's what I said, too, because I feel like Scott Dawson edges out Wilder where it really matters, and that is the promo. So, yeah. Again, don't think it'll happen, but I won't outright
God.
call you insane given
See, and that's the thing. Like James in chat was like, "Oh, he can because Jinder Mahal's WWE champion." What you forget though is that Jinder Mahal is 6'5" and roided his ass off to get a body that Vince McMahon jizzes over. So that's
Right.
really like that's never going to happen with either of the Revival guys, even if they do work their bodies into amazing shape, because they're both under 6 feet tall, and Vince is never going to jizz over them for that reason.
Right.
So, all right. Next question is our first question of the night from Javaris Carter.
Our pimp.
First question: do you think Bruce Lee will be known as the greatest martial artist ever? And if not, who is the GOAT? You want me to go first?
Well, wait. Did you ask me if I wanted to go first, or if
No, I said, do you want me to go first?
I was actually going to go first on this because I was going to be very straightforward. I think he will be. Now, I want to qualify this by saying I'm not well versed in martial arts or like the culture surrounding it. But here's the thing: one of my best friends, his name is Angel. Like, he's hugely influenced by Bruce Lee, and he in turn influenced me in terms of like my health and my fitness. Because Bruce Lee, I think, is one of those proponents that a sound mind equates with like a sound body. So yeah, having a very close personal friend that's so hugely influenced by Bruce Lee and like how everybody talks about him, I couldn't even give you a substitute for who might be the GOAT because again, I don't have much knowledge in this area. But I think just because of the cultural transcendence he's had, probably, because I really don't hear anybody in the same breath as Bruce Lee that often, if ever. So I'll say, yeah, he's going to go down as the GOAT. What about you, Ashton?
I think among hardcore martial arts fans, he probably will be. But if we're talking more of a mainstream audience, I think Jackie Chan has got it on lockdown because he's got more of like that sort of mainstream, not even appeal. I'm not going to say he has more mainstream appeal, but he's got more. He's more well known. He's more famous. He's better known for movies that he does kung fu in than just being in kung fu movies. You know what I mean? Like with Bruce Lee, he was in kung fu movies. With Jackie Chan, he was in movies that were very, very popular that he happened to do kung fu and martial arts in.
Right.
So I think for that reason, greatest of all time, you could probably argue Bruce Lee, but if you would ask, if you would poll the world, the most common answer would probably be Jackie Chan.
Right. Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I'm so glad you said that, Ashton, because, because wait, where did these came from? Jarveris. And I remember recording these questions, and I was thinking about Jackie Chan. That's the only opposition, like worthwhile opposition to Bruce Lee that I could see is Jackie Chan. So I'm really glad you brought that name up because I completely agree. But I think that sufficiently answers that question. So what's Jarveris' second question?
Second question from Javaris is, how awesome would it be if Honma returned, had a winning streak, and got a world title match?
I think that'd be fucking cool. Hell, there was one year when Honma was still active that I picked him to win G1 because I thought he was such an underdog baby face that they'd want to go that story. I think anytime you have an underdog with the appeal that Honma has, you can't go wrong with that kind of story. I would like to have a few roadblocks to that winning streak, but then again, I guess it wouldn't really be a streak in that case. I mean, I think Jarveris is kind of pointing at what PWG did with Chuck Taylor, and that worked pretty well. Do I think Honma could pull off the same thing? Don't really see why not. So I'd say, yeah, I'd actually be down for that, me personally. What about you?
I'm going to say no, actually. I think that Honma's path to the world title match isn't a winning streak. It's losing, and then you get lucky and beat the world champion in a tag match, and then holy shit, you've got this opportunity, and then maybe like you get another tag match and you pin him again, and it's like, oh my god, like Honma has this guy's number, and then the world title match happens and he loses, but then he pins him in another non-title match and then he wins. Like, he's got to lose his way there. You can't just have freaking Honma, of all people, go on a winning streak. It just completely abandons everything that made his character great in the first place.
Right, I can definitely see where you're coming from. Next question from Jarveris.
Third question from Jarveris. If Suzuki met you in a dark alley, what would you do to avoid getting your ass kicked?
Anything and everything. I'd cry, I'd plead, I'd beg, I'd be the young boy for Suzuki Gun if he'd take me in, Or maybe I would just close my eyes and just take my lumps. But yeah, really anything I could do, including as a last resort, defend myself, which would be both sad and hilarious. I'm curious what you're going to say, though, since we both admitted to being intimidated on some level by Suzuki. What's your strategy to survive?
Well, I mean, Suzuki's only like 5'10", so I might be able to get away with the big brother, little arm out, preventing little brother from reaching him move.
Okay.
But if that doesn't work, because I'm assuming, I mean, I'm basically feeding him my arm at that point, so I might as well just be begging for an armbar. At that point, I would probably just have to play dead and hope he stopped soon.
But what if he's like kicking you really hard in the ribs and you can't keep up the act long, and then he says in Japanese, "How you breathing, asshole?" And then you have this like agony and laughter. Like, how are you going to be able to keep up the facade?
Dude, Cliff and Alex had similar ideas, and it's something that I've actually seen work before. If somebody's really threatening and they're getting up in your face like they want to beat the shit out of you, just take all your clothes off and start walking towards them.
Oh my god, there you go. It's like, oh god, if I punch this dude, I risk his genitalia rubbing up against me.
Yeah.
Actually, that's kind of ingenious. If anything else, it makes for a far more interesting news story than just your standard mugging.
No, that would prevent the news story from happening because there would be no, obituary the next day.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh my god, what people think of. All right, next question from Sharp Harris.
All right, it's for both of us. Cut a promo on DBZ Marks, whose bitching led to Gohan getting nerfed after the Cell Saga.
Okay, I'll take the reins on this. You people in your promos, like, I know my voice is magnificent, but goddamn. All right.
This is Q&A, people, not TWitWoW become your personal puppets.
I know, right? Oh, Akira Toriyama! We can't have Gohan be the new protagonist. We want Goku. We want... Okay, listen, you fucking marks. First of all, it's called fan fiction. If you want Goku to be the hero of your stories, I don't know, why don't you not be lazy for once in your pathetic lives and you write them with Goku at the center. Secondly, Gohan was badass. Look, the only reason that you want Goku front and center is because he eats a lot like you do, and you think, oh, well, that's clearly not stopping me from being a badass. One day I can be like him. No, you can't, especially because the latest iteration has proven that he's a literal fucking god, while you are nothing more than a mouth-breathing malcontent that is a fucking pleb and an eyesore on this planet. But no, just take away the hard-earned push from the other guy, from Gohan, who you probably envy because in your teen years, all you got was a cracking voice and acne that you had to hide with a paper bag over your face because your mother keeps lamenting over a glass of wine how she wishes you were aborted. But fine, take it out on Gohan. You know what? You guys fucking disgust me. You didn't outright ruin the DBZ series for me. You can kind of thank GT for that, and then Super's been kind of all right. But Gohan was badass. You knew he was badass. You envied him for it, and you had too much of your conservative attachment. I don't like change. I like my Dragon Ball Z this way. Nobody cares about you. Literally, you could die tomorrow. Or actually, no, redact that. You can die in the first 5 seconds, and in the next 5, you know what happens? The world keeps turning on its axis because you don't matter a single fucking lick. You're worthless, your opinions are worthless, and honestly, the thought of you breathing to even form the opinions that you did that derailed Gohan's momentum, it's offensive to me. So, there's your promo. Is there anything you can add, or do you just want to piggyback off that and we can get to our next question?
You know, I don't feel that passionate about the subject, so I'm just going to back off and let you have it.
All right, well, I did it, so we can move on to our next question.
First question out of 4 from Ace the Skylord. Why is Lucha Underground taking this much time to announce Season 4?
I'll let you have this, and then I'll probably piggyback off your answer, to be honest. So why do you think?
I really wish I knew, but the thing is, if they're waiting this long, there is obviously a reason, whether it's some kind of contractual reason, or if it's something related to money, or if it's the network, or what. All I know is that if they announce tomorrow, they would probably start taping in November, December. which really works out because I want them to start showing season 4 in January anyway. So February at the latest, I would say, because that's like a 3-month break between seasons. They've already reserved the temple, so we know season 4 is happening. As far as the reasoning as to why they haven't officially announced yet, yeah, I don't know. There's obviously some kind of good reason for it that I'm just ignorant to, but I mean, you're asking me to answer a question that I just blatantly don't know.
I'm essentially the same way. I mean, one thing I respect about Lucha Underground is I don't think they put out anything hastily because they don't want to put their foot in their mouth. Like I know there was a period where it seemed like TNA, GFW, whatever the fuck they're calling themselves now, would put out like a press release or this and that, and then like something would flop, or they had that period where they had trouble with like, well, who's our network provider gonna be, and it was a mess. I like how under wraps Lucha Underground keeps things because you can't prevent everything from leaking, but I think Lucha Underground does a better job than most. And they only release things, I think, when they have absolute certainty on the subject. And I respect them for that because the last thing you need is a feeding frenzy. And so I don't have answers either, but I would have to assume that whatever the reason, it's a good one. So that's my answer to that. We can move on to the next question.
All right, next question. If the Scott Steiner that we know now retained his physical athletic wrestling ability that he had pre-steroids, how much more popular would he be right now?
Me personally, when I was recording that question, I thought about it. I personally think he'd be one of the more over wrestlers in the business.
Yeah.
I think he'd have such mass appeal.
Because the thing is, like, with the lack of steroids and the better in-ring wrestling ability, and the thing is, like, even to this day, I don't think Scott Steiner is a horrible, wrestler. I just think that he's gotten older and out of shape, and not even out of shape in the sense that, like, oh, he's fat, but in out of shape that, like, he's gotten so bulky and big and thick that he's gotten so stiff that he can't move anymore. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So really, my simple answer to that is probably like Batista big.
Yeah. That's actually a really good parallel. Actually, I like that answer. So I guess we can move on.
All right, next question. Oh, this is just for me. All right, thanks, Ace. What's your favorite Harry Potter book / movie? Unfortunately, I don't remember what Harry Potter book I like the most because I read them. First of all, I read the first 4 books. I read the first 4 books pretty thoroughly, but then 5, 6, and 7 I pretty much just read for like school projects. And it was one of those situations where I procrastinated, so I had to skim and just find the most basic points to put in my book reports. So I really don't remember them much. But as far as movies go, my favorite Harry Potter movie ever is, to this day, The Prisoner of Azkaban, which was the 3rd movie. That was the one that involved time travel and the hippogriffs. And, like, yeah, it's just, to me, that is the most, like, I'm not necessarily saying, like, that's my favorite Harry Potter experience. I'm saying out of the 8 Harry Potter movies that were made, that's the highest quality movie, in my opinion.
Right.
I absolutely adored that movie. Like, the way, and the thing is, like, it really did kind of change how I look at time travel in media, like whether it's movies, TV shows, anything like that, because of the way that they set it up in the sense that everything that was going on in the past had already happened, and they had to continue on the paths that they already did, that they didn't realize that they already did, but they had to know that they already did because it already happened, because they were in the past, and the thing that happened in the past already happened when they did it the first time.
Right, okay.
So, like, Hermione throwing the stone into Hagrid's hut, and, like, Harry needing to cast the Patronus to save literally himself, and I think Sirius Black on the other side. And that was the other thing, we got introduced to Sirius Black. It was the first time that we got like a really legit father figure in Harry's life. Like, to me, episode 3, the 3rd movie, it just had everything. And yes, Brandon, that is the one with the werewolf. Yeah. And that, to me, that movie just had everything that I loved.
Yeah, great answer. That was just for you, so I'm not going to say anything. Let's move on to our next question.
Next question is for both of us. If Rey Mysterio's Lucha Underground duties are done after season 3, is a WWE return possible?
Last I heard, which of course you always take these things with a grain of salt, he put feelers out and they weren't interested. Now personally, I think that's hogwash. I mean, it's Rey Mysterio. I think they'd want to use him in some capacity. Hell, even if it was putting him down in NXT and having him do like a program with somebody down there. But yeah, I think a WWE return is always possible. Again, like I'm just referencing stuff that I read, but I never even really take that stuff seriously, even if the source is quote unquote credible. You know what's credible? My eyes and my computer screen. When I see with my eyes on that computer screen that Ray's coming out, that's when I'll know that, of course, things are happening. But yeah, I would say, notwithstanding anything, of course, a WWE return's possible. I think he had a good relationship with them. He's a big name, in the business even now. So I think a door never really closes in circumstances like that. So I'm going to say yes. What about you, Ashton?
I mean, the thing is, the question is whether it's possible, and of course it is possible.
Right.
But to me, I think that Ray's worst possible decision host LU is WWE. And I'm not even exaggerating. He would legitimately be better off going to GFW and working their lighter schedule than going to WWE.
Yeah.
To me, I think the best bet is just to stick around in Mexico, work for AAA, and be their literal god, or just keep it up in LU. I mean, I'm not the biggest Rey Mysterio fan, so him leaving LU isn't exactly devastating to me. It's more like oh well, that might be addition by subtraction, but still, like it's still in Ray's best interest to go anywhere but WWE.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah. Next question.
We have 4 questions from David Fanara. First question: what age would you give your son a smartphone and access to the internet?
Probably like the age of like maybe 10 or 12. I mean, obviously at that age, I would still like supervise and like teach them like where to go, what to watch out for. But I think kids in classrooms, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like even at the elementary level, computers are being integrated more and more all the time. So I may even bump the age down, like if information was brought to me.
Yeah, I was even gonna say, like, for me, it's as soon as he shows interest in it. Like
Yeah.
especially with the internet, like if he would ever ask me a question that I didn't know the answer to, I would say, you know what, I don't know, but let's find out. And we would look it up together on the internet, and I would teach him how to use the internet in a healthy and inquisitive way. And eventually that, just me teaching him how to use the internet on a computer, would lead to him being like, oh, can I look stuff up on the internet without going to a computer? I want a phone. And I would be like, you know what? Yeah, fine. I'll get you one, and I'll teach you how to use it responsibly. So yeah, that's like, if that was at 4 years old, that means I have a very, not trivia, very inquisitive son, and I would definitely encourage that behavior, because I think that being inquisitive and asking questions is one of the most valuable character traits that a person can have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question, second question from David Fanara. Why do you think content like fake pranks or stupid vlogs get so many views on YouTube? Can I go first?
Yeah, sure.
First of all, I don't like calling any content shitty, because if somebody makes content, and it gets a ton of views on YouTube, then it's got to be good according to someone. So I'm not going to just say objectively that it's shitty, but I think I get what you're saying. It's kind of like the low effort content that more just kind of preys on human emotion than actually producing original content. And I think that the reason it gets so many views on YouTube is because it's relatable. It's stuff that people are interested in, and with pranks, people think that that's cool. People think, like, oh, someone did something to me and I want to get it back at them, but I don't want to really hurt them, so let me just prank them and make a joke out of it, and that kind of thing. Or, like when you're a young teenager, you look up shit like that. You find the most interest. Like, it's so interesting to me, because like when I was that age, I probably would have looked that kind of stuff up if it was at the tips of my fingers. I would have probably looked that up, like, you know, like how to pick up girls, like that kind of shit. Like I was super into just like trying to learn life skills that you have to learn by just doing them through the internet when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old. And I think that like pranks and vlogs are just one of those things that, and I think it mostly is probably younger kids and younger teens that get all of those views on YouTube, or that not get, but that are the product that like are doing the viewing.
Yeah, I thought that was a terrific answer. There's not really much I can add. I originally was going to make a joke of it, if I'm honest, but really, you know, I just think it's what people want right now. I think there's so much seriousness in the world when you hear about global conflicts and Trump's presidency in a nutshell, because it seems like not a day can go by until there's like another crisis or controversy or this and that. I think people just see vlogs, and I don't mean this in like a malicious way, because I think we all have one, right? So there's not like, there's nothing wrong with those people, just like there's nothing wrong with this group of people. But I think it's just a form of escapism, you know, just to laugh for like 5 or however many so minutes and just realize that like there's a lighter side of life. I mean, people enjoy it. You know, I mean, people criticize us in this community for liking pro wrestling. Oh, how can you like that fake shit, that gay shit of men rolling around with each other? Like, I think
fake and gay.
I think everybody has their form of escapism, and you know, for that generation, like, you know, and I do agree. Like, for me, a lot of it does look low effort, but there are people that do comedy stuff that, you know, I think we enjoy. Like H3, I love H3. I think some of the like skits that he does and, you know, people that he has on are hilarious. But other people, you know, it's like I really don't see the appeal. But if it gets them through a day, if it makes them laugh in the midst of like, oh, is North Korea going to perfect a nuclear missile? Let them fucking have it. You know, like I obviously think that we should all direct our energies on important things, but you can't do that 24/7. You need levity, you need escape, you need fun, really, in a word. And I think that's really what that provides. I didn't expect the question to get so serious. I kind of apologize for that. But yeah, I mean, that's honestly why I think content like that exists, because somebody somewhere thought this will have an appeal to somebody, to Ashton's point. And clearly that appeal is validated because people look to that and say, oh, this is what I needed after a hard day. So there you go. Nothing more I can add, so I guess we can move on to our next question.
Okay, here we go. Oh God.
Oh Jesus, how bad is it?
David Finaro, what's the cringiest thing that's ever happened to you?
The cringiest thing?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus. Any moment of recognition for me in elementary school, because I was always like the disabled kid, right? So it was always a bigger deal because people like me aren't supposed to do the things that I'm doing, like getting the grades that I got or doing the things that I'm doing. Because, oh, isn't it extra inspiring? Because he did it while in a wheelchair. So yeah, having a disability, a lot of my childhood was cringe. Because I feel like people made a bigger deal out of me than what I wanted. And even though I am a big fucking deal, like I am a sexy beast and everything else, they were making a big deal out of me for the wrong reasons. So yeah, it's hard to pinpoint to one moment because there were so many cringy things of like, oh, you're just fantastic, and oh, I'll pray for you. Yeah, keep your prayers to yourself, thanks. What about you, bud? What's the cringiest thing that's ever happened to you?
Oh, well, I guess I've got 2 examples, and the one has been highly alluded to on TWitWoW before because John just loves bringing it up and throwing it in my face.
I think I know where this is going. Hold on. Let me get ready to laugh some more. Continue.
Well, when I was in 3rd grade,
I love how he emphasizes it with that edge. Well, I was in 3rd grade, all right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when I was 8 years old, I was in 3rd grade. I was the best speller in my class. And, you know, we knew that there was this big spelling bee coming up, and our teacher would have us do these drills where they would not hold up a flashcard. That's obviously dumb. They would say a word and we would have to spell it out. And I was either the best performer or the second best performer in every single one of those drills. And then I ended up being in the spelling bee, and the first round came up and the word was white. And I knew how to spell it. I pictured it in my head, but I choked. I was extremely, extremely socially awkward. I was extremely nervous because it was literally the first time I ever did anything in front of a crowd. And I spelled white, but forgot the E at the end. And I was so confident. I was like, WHIT, white. And then there was this long, awkward pause. And it was as if everyone was thinking to themselves, Jesus Christ, this kid is retarded. And then by the time the pause had ended, and right before the judge said, I'm sorry, that's wrong, you're done, I thought to myself, oh my God, I forgot the E. And I was getting ready to be one of those kids that was like, all right, E, that's E at the end. But then I was just so stifled by my own shock and horror that I had botched that hard that I just didn't say anything. And then I went over and sat in the bleachers with my family and watched as every single other word that came up, I knew how to spell correctly in my head.
The only thing that would make that story better, because I loved your little additions there, would be if you were carried out of the room and you're like, wait, I'm smart. You can't do this to me. I'm Ashton. And then you were like the kid in Big Daddy. I can wipe my own ass.
I can wipe my own ass.
Oh. Dude, you know what? Hold up. You were such a good sport about that. I can't, it's only fair. I did think of 2 embarrassing stories that I will tell. I know you had a second
one. Well, that's good, because I've got one more. So you can tell one, then I'll tell one, then you can finish off.
Okay. You'll appreciate this one because you're becoming more proficient in Spanish from what you told me. It was in Spanish class. I want to say, again, elementary school. I don't remember the exact grade. And the teacher looks to me because we're like learning how to pronounce certain words. And I don't know how the question came up, but it essentially was, how do you say porch in Spanish? And I said porche. And like everybody turned around and they laughed at me. So yeah, that was the point where I'm like, I am never trying again ever. This was a huge mistake. So yeah, that's my first embarrassing one. But now you share your second one, because I had to think of specific ones because you were really jammed there.
Well, I mean, in that first story, I at least had the excuse of being young and 8 years old and just being barely functional as a human being. But this next one's worse because I was 18 and it was in college. When I was like, I want to say starting around like 13 or 14 years old, probably until I hit like 19 or 20, I loved stand-up comedy because I had absolutely no charisma whatsoever, but I could make people laugh by telling other people's jokes, by like reciting jokes that I heard in stand-up specials. So I watched all kinds of stand-up comedy. I even liked Dane Cook. I liked the blue collar comedy tour. There was a period where I loved that stuff, and I'm legitimately embarrassed to even say that because it's so horrible in hindsight. I liked freaking Jeff Dunham. Like it was just really just the bottom of the barrel as far as comedy goes. And one of the other comedians that I see as sort of bottom of the barrel these days that I liked back then was Gabriel Iglesias, right?
Right.
And Gabriel Iglesias would always kind of touch on racial issues. And one of the things that he said was, and this is because he's a Mexican dude, and he talked about how he went to Hawaii one time, and everyone thought that he was Hawaiian because, and in his words, Hawaiians were basically just swollen Mexicans.
Oh, Jesus.
So I ended up in, I think it was like a marketing class, which is, the irony is just too deep. And I think it was a marketing class. I ended up saying, oh yeah, Hawaiians are just swollen Mexicans, when something about Hawaiians got brought up. And then there was a dude in my class that was legit Mexican, and he just gave me this look as everyone in the class cracked up, not with me, but at me because of how damn ignorant I was.
Yeah, oh Jesus.
So I'm so glad I got that off my chest, though, because the 12 people that are here right now are our hardest of hardcore fans, and those are the people that I'm okay knowing that story.
Yeah, it's like this dies with all of you. Yeah, my second.
The reactions in chat are priceless too.
Oh my god. Well, I made a promise. I said 2 stories, so you're gonna get 2 stories. It was in first grade. I was like recently living with my grandmother because we made the transition, and I go to public school. And like in a way, I don't regret that this happened. Like in hindsight, I can see how it's really bad, right? But even in terms of like a formative experience to make me the person I am today, I'm not that apologist about it. But I had this crush on this girl who, ironically enough, and I say ironically because we'll get to that later in the story, but she is engaged now. I found out yesterday, so mazel tov to her. But I had this huge crush on her, and I'm talking like cliche childhood crush 101. I even kept like a poetry book, like poems about her that I wrote, and like I'd get inspired and I'd write stuff.
Again, though, the funniest thing about that, I had something similar, but I didn't have an original thought in my mind when I was a teenager. So rather than writing actual original material that might have been like poetry or songs or anything like that, I just wrote down song lyrics to songs that already existed that I felt like described my feelings.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, dude, that was probably a better route than trying to come up with original thoughts. Because if you were me, they were pretty basic. And Cliff, I read that. Son, we need to talk about boundaries. I know I really wasn't there for you, but I'm gonna try and make up for lost time. But anyway, so I had this big crush, did the poetry book, but I was like infatuated with her, and it was purely like physical, because obviously when you're that young, you don't really care about personalities. At least I didn't. Maybe I'm just trying to absolve myself here. But I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna propose to her because I'm crazy about this girl. So I get this little toy ring, like what you'd get out of like the whole fucking quarter machine, and I do it like in the cafeteria. I go over to her lunch table, I do it, and that was cringy enough, even knowing that I did that.
Yeah.
But then I go home, right? And my grandmother knew about it because apparently the principal called.
Oh.
Because I apparently made her so uncomfortable. And I gotta say, that was probably the first of like 2 really formative experiences for me about like how to properly treat women and boundaries and consent. Because there's one other story that I won't share here because I only promised 2. But yeah, this is definitely like the first moment we're looking back on it. I'm like, yeah, I can see what I did, like how that could be perceived as like really uncomfortable and screwed up. Thankfully, my grandmother wasn't pissed at me. Like, I think she knew, like, okay, you're just a kid. Just don't do it again because that's a no-no. She clearly wasn't comfortable. But yeah, I think that's what really like makes it from like that's really bad to cringe is when family and stuff gets involved. Because she was enough where like, okay, this kid has this crush on me and he hasn't stopped, and now he did this today. So like, nip it in the ass. And thankfully, I didn't give her any problems. Like, we're cool now. Actually, she messaged me the other day, and we're cool now. But yeah, it was rough. Love hurts, people. Love hurts. But yeah, that's my second story, and we can move on.
Okay. Wow, that was really therapeutic. But anyway, 4th and final question from David Finara. Tell each other something that the other person doesn't know about you. I think I kind of just did with my you know, Mexicans are just, you know, the swollen Mexicans thing.
I did the same thing with my proposal story and shit. So yeah, I'd say that counts. Let's move on to our next question.
Yeah, because really we went above and beyond, because he only asked what the cringiest thing that ever happened to us was, and we told multiple stories, including stuff that neither of us had ever heard before. So we're going to just combine them. Yeah.
Yeah. And here I was going to tell you about my really bad back knee, but I won't have to do that now. So let's move on to our next question.
All right. Stella is up next with 4 questions. We have 16 questions left, and then we can call this a day. First question from Stella. Thoughts on dogs?
I'm going to be honest. I have a pet dog, and I do love him in my own way. Like, we're not that close, but he can be so timid and tender. Like, here's the thing. When I say that, like, it's clear that he loves me.
I know, it's just funny because it's like I love him in my own way from a distance.
Yeah, actually, we've been getting a little bit better. Like, I noticed, like, when I pet him, as long as somebody else is around, like, he's not discomforted by me. But I've really come to learn that I'm not an animal person at all. Because I can even tell you, Stella, and I'm glad she asked this. Very recently, I was taking a walk because I gotta tell you, people, since we're being so open and this has become like quasi therapy, I fucking hate being bothered on walks. Like when I'm going on a walk, whether it's to the mailbox or a legitimate hike, you know, because I can apparently do 16 and a half miles. Like I don't like to be bothered. I don't like to be accosted by people or things. And two issues with dogs that just make me realize I'm just not an animal person in general. One was very recent. I was walking, and this big dog saw me walking on crutches. I think something about my crutches just alarms them because I don't walk like a quote unquote normal person walks. And they're barking at me and they're coming up to me. Now, here's my thing, and you guys could say I'm irrational. I don't know how that dog was brought up, and I'm not taking any chances. So even if the dog looks harmless, in my mind, I don't have time to rationalize all that. I'm fearful, right? So I'm just going to freeze up and be tense because, like, oh God, am I going to be attacked? Plus, I have friends that have had, like, bad brushes with animals, so that's always in my mind, too. And the guy was like, oh, he's a really good dog. He just wants to smell you. And, like, in my most panted voice, because I really try and be calm and nice with people. I think you know, Ashton, I really hate being confrontational with people, but I straight up told the guy, like, I'm not comfortable with that. Get your dog away from me. Like, I'm not comfortable with that. I just want to get on with my business. And thankfully, he did. But, yeah. And then another thing was, and now I don't fear them anymore. In fact, again, if full disclosure, I flip them off now. When I know their owners aren't looking and they're on the lawn, I'll raise my middle finger up and I'll be like, go fuck yourself. Because there are these dogs on this one property, because our mailbox by foot is 20 minutes away from our property. Like, it's a good way out. And that's why it's always a good walk for me, because I'll go and check the mail a lot of the time on behalf of the family. Well, there was a period where I would do that, but the dogs would chase me. Like, they'd never catch me or even be violent towards me, but they'd come in my direction. And again, like with the previous story, I'd always tense up and be fearful. So I would race, like, and just duck and do whatever to try and get away from them, because their owners are horrible and they don't know what a fucking leash is, or just, you know, restraining them on something. But now I don't even fear them anymore. I just go for my mail, and when they're barking and they're looking at me and I know the owner isn't around, I flip them off. So why I tell those stories is, like, I have no problem with animals personally. And again, my dog personally is such a sweetheart, very tender, very passive. He's become a bit more of a hunter based on stories I've heard recently from the family. But he really is a sweetheart. I know he would never do me any harm. It's just I'm not an animal person in general, I don't think. It's just me and animals do not mix. So, yeah, no problem with dogs. But I think after this run, I just don't see myself ever connecting with an animal. Maybe I'll prove myself wrong, though. You never know. But what about you, Ashton? What do you think about dogs?
Before I get into this, we got a $2 super chat from James, and he's demanding that you tell the other story.
Okay, well, because, you know, he gave money. Really, you know, long story short, I have this friend because she, like, her grandmother and my grandmother are best friends. Like, you know the woman that I'm talking about, I think, because I know I've mentioned, like, her to you. Yeah. And she's always had a very different approach to life and how she carries herself, which I've always respected. I've always actually admired that about her. And when we were kids, I remember just mindlessly, like, I gave her a hug because I didn't know any better. Because, you know, when you're a child, if anything, the behavior's encouraged. Oh, that means she likes you, isn't that? Like, we don't talk about boundaries and this and that at that young age, even though I think in a lot of cases we should. And then a weekend after, when she came back, she said, you know, you did this, and I just wanted to let you know that made me very uncomfortable. And I never gave her a hug again after that. Like, even with us both being adults, the most I'll give her is a handshake. Like, that's what we do. That's our thing. She's just a very personal space kind of person. So that was definitely, like, my second big lesson in consent and boundaries. Like, just because you feel like one person is comfortable with this, that doesn't mean everybody's comfortable with that type of behavior. And so, yeah, I was very grateful for that experience in the long run. So that's the second story. Now back to you. What do you think of dogs?
I'm the exact opposite of you. I am absolutely a dog person, really an animal person in general. You know how some people claim that they can read animals' thoughts?
Yeah.
I would never go that far, but I am extremely, extremely good at being able to read animals' body language and, like, their ears and what they're paying attention to and what they're noticing and the kind of mood that they seem to be in. I'm really, really good at just being able to read animals in general and just being able to get an idea of whether they are feeling hostile towards me or whether they're friendly or anything like that. And I also will go as far as to say I kind of have like that dog whisperer kind of thing where like if a dog seems like it is aggressive, I tend to be able to calm them down pretty easily, pretty quickly. I'm one of those people where like even just a more recent example. Are you still there, by the way? It sounded like you dropped your head.
I almost dropped my headset, but I caught it. I am still here with you guys, so please continue.
Anyway, yeah, like there was last year we found a cat outside and it was completely estranged. We had no idea who this cat was or what kind of, whether it was feral or whether it was domesticated or what, but it kept showing up and meowing at the door. And like we would, like when it would walk away from the door, we would put food out for it just because we were scared that it wasn't getting food. And then at one point, like my mom went out and she was really, really apprehensive about it. Like she would like reach down and pet its back and like be gentle and kind of, overly cautious and stuff. And then one day I went out there and I ended up petting her to the point that she rolled on her back and I got to pet her stomach. And then I even ended up picking her up and holding her. And again, this is just some estranged, like completely unfamiliar cat. I ended up picking her up and holding her and petting her like that. And she seemed completely calm in my arms. So again, like for some reason, I seem to have a connection with animals that a lot of people don't.
Right.
And now that cat lives in our garage. So.
All right. I guess next question.
And I really want to meet Riddick just to see if he's just really scared of everyone or if I would be able to kind of break down those walls and have some kind of like, connection where I just kind of calm him down.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about that. Like people have broken down walls with Riddick, but I think you need to put in the time. And that is one thing I'll own up to. Like I've never put in the time. And to be honest, I don't think I ever will. But yeah, I think if you put in the time, he would definitely warm up to you. Because I know, like, even when my half-sister and her then wife, like, visited, he warmed up to them when they played with them a little bit. And I think he's more naturally comfortable with females, I've noticed, than with males. But I think if you were still putting in the time regardless, he would warm up to you. I just think, me and him, again, I've never put in the time. And even in the car where he's, like, the most relaxed, I can tell, even when I pet him there, like, I kind of sully his mood. So I don't even do that anymore. Because, like, I want him to be relaxed in the car. I don't want him to feel, like, panicked in that enclosed space. So, yeah. But I definitely see where you're coming from with the whole animal thing about, getting the vibe. Because you definitely strike me as the type. But next question.
Next question from Stella. What is your worst Lucha Underground spoiler experience?
I can answer this very readily. Johnny Mundo's title reign. Like some random fuckwad that I haven't seen comment on our video since totally spoiled it without any forethought of, hey, have you guys seen this yet? Like I waited so many years for that title reign. You guys all heard the markout video, and then to have it spoiled, like, oh God, it still pisses me off just thinking about it. Easily the worst. What about
you? Man, probably. I mean, that's definitely one of them, but Sexy Star winning Aztec Warfare 3.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave Meltzer, you cocksucker.
Yeah, fuck those people. Next
that's
question.
That right there, though, him spoiling that and not giving a spoiler warning to people listening to his show, that episode is the last time I've listened to the Wrestling Observer.
Yeah, and I don't blame you, because at least if you would have prefaced it with a spoiler warning, I would have been like, okay, you did it, because I know I've done that here, even in these Q&As. And in other videos, but like to not even give warning and just be like, oh, sorry, like, fuck you, dude. Jesus.
Well, no, he didn't apologize for it. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong. He just came right out and talked about it like everyone knew already.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like to not preface it with a warning and then, yeah, like you said, not even apologize for it after the fact. Like, what a dickweed. Fuck you, dude.
Next question, third question from Stella. I heard you guys watch Game of Thrones. Thoughts on season 7? I didn't watch season 7, but John did, so go!
I'm just going to use very vague phrases because I know me and Ashton are going to like watch Game of Thrones together, which means I'll rewatch season 7 with him.
You just say what you want. I've probably already been spoiled on shit that you would have held back.
Well, no, because maybe there are other people. I still want to be respectful. We just got done a whole conversation there. It was epic. And I will say this, still being vague, the finale, I think, was the most rewarding experience for longtime Game of Thrones fans. And even when I say long time, I mean even people that may have started late, but they committed to catching up to that point. It was such a rewarding experience. Because I think if you've stuck with the show, the visuals, the dialogue, like you got so much that I felt was so fulfilling. To me, I think it was one of the finale of season 7 in particular was not only one of the best episodes of the series, I think it was the best finale they've done in 7 seasons, and they still have one more to go. So yeah, I love season 7, and I think it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And they finished strong, especially with the ending scene, or like one of the ending scenes. So fucking good, and I think it was the perfect tone setter for next year. So yeah, season 7 was a real winner for sure.
Sweet. Up next, though, fourth and final question from Stella. Who do you think are going to be major casualties in the War of the Gods in Lucha Underground?
I'll say Pentagon Dark, since that officer whose name I already forget, like he said, too bad, you know, his flesh will burn when the war comes.
Oh yeah, Agent Winter.
Yeah. So Pentagon Dark. I could see Matanza being a casualty because I can't see the Cueto family coming out of this completely unscathed. I hate to say it, I do worry about Johnny. Like I have thought, like, could he?
No.
I know. It hurts me to say it, but it's crossed my mind. So I think since I like to do things in threes tonight, I'll say Pentagon, Matanza, and Johnny Mundo. And before,
Jesus Christ, you're just killing off the main characters.
Well, I mean, you know,
what is this, Infinity War?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. And if not Johnny, I mean, take Sexy Star instead because he's so we should beat him as well.
She'll probably die off screen between seasons 3 and 4.
Oh my god! But yeah, who do you think are going to be major casualties?
I think that like the head of each tribe is going to be a potential casualty. I think the one guy that is considered a tribe head that will live is Azteca Jr., but I think that Marty is at risk. I think Cobra Moon is at risk. I think King Cuerno is at risk if he ever comes back from the dead already, which could be an issue. Unfortunately, Mil Muertes is probably at risk, and Paul London is probably at risk. And then I'm just going to toss out the two guys we already know are gods. Matanza and Cage are both probably at risk.
All right. I like that answer. Next question, or next set of questions, right? Because that was the last one from
Stella.
Stella.
That was our last question from Stella. Up next, we've got 4 questions from Hazardous Something. These were submitted via the Discord, which you can get access to by donating $3 to our Patreon. Every month that you donate $3, you will be given Discord access for the following month. So if you donate $3 tonight, and that has to be tonight because it's the 31st, and tomorrow is the 1st, and if you try and donate $3 tomorrow, it won't get processed until the 1st of October. So if you want in on the Discord in September, do it now. Donate now. If you don't do it today, and you literally have less than 2 hours, you will miss out on all of September. You won't be able to get in until October. I'm plugging it as hard as I can because we had multiple people last month be like, oh, I didn't know that the deadline was up. But now you know the deadline is up. If you don't donate $3 or more to Patreon today, you're not in the Discord in September.
Yeah.
Now,
So
that being said, these questions were submitted through Discord, and thank you to Hazardous Something for the minimum of $3 that he donated in order to get into the Discord. And for these questions, first question, imagine Marty the Moth in New Japan during G1 this year. Which participant do you wish he would use the lunchbox treatment on?
Oh, that's a good one. Toru Yano would be kind of hilarious to see him do it too.
Wow. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say Toru Yano. What about you?
I feel like me getting offended made you double down. Like you were like, oh yeah, Toru Yano. And then I was like, wow. And then you're like, you know what? No, I definitely want to see Toru Yano now.
Oh, definitely. Hurting you is definitely bonus points for sure.
Yeah. Dick.
So what about you?
Evil.
Oh, nice. Interesting choice. Interesting choice. I
Yeah,
like
Marty can be like, oh, you think you're dark? Wait, what I can do.
it. You merely adopted the darkness. I was
I
born
was
in
born
it.
into it.
I was molded by it. All right, so next question.
Next question is for Johnny Scumbag.
Oh boy, what do we
Oh
got?
God, I'm so sorry, John. I feel like this is a trap. Um, who was the biggest failure of the month of August? Minoru Suzuki for not winning G1, Kevin Owens for losing multiple times to AJ Styles, including losing the US title, or Baron Corbin for losing his cash in and then losing to Cena and then being made a bitch of by Ty Dillinger.
Definitely Corbin. Definitely
Yeah.
Corbin. Because here's the thing:
I
Suzuki
feel like you
didn't
could list them
lose.
like in that order from least fail, like the lowest level of failure to the biggest level of failure.
Because see, like I put Suzuki at the bottom personally.
That's what I'm
Because a
saying.
lot of
Yeah.
people,
Like
yeah,
Suzuki failed the least, Corbin failed the most.
yeah, because a lot of people didn't win G1, so Suzuki's hardly alone in that. Whereas where Kevin Owens and Baron Corbin are unique is those were purely singles endeavors, and Kevin Owens failed in his multiple times, but Baron Corbin, he just it was the biggest flame out, and it's so bad that a lot of people are saying like his career will never recover or he'll never get to this level now because of how bad that was. Like Damian Sandow can sleep at night again because of Baron Corbin. So yeah, Baron Corbin was definitely the biggest failure in the month of August to me.
Okay. What are your favorite characters in Mr. Robot? And I'll just go first immediately. Christian Slater's portrayal of Mr. Robot.
Yeah, my two favorite characters easily Elliot and Tyrell Wellick because of things that he did in season one that were absolutely hilarious and things that look like he's going to be doing this season based on that little 1 minute clip that I shared with you and that I saw. Because he has one scene in there that looks like he's spiraling and it's just delicious. So yeah, Elliot and Tyrell, and I definitely agree with you about Christian Slater's portrayal of Mr. Robot. That's also fantastic. I pretty much love the entire cast, but yeah, those three people are just freaking great.
Dude, Christian Slater is like amazing.
Yeah.
Like I just don't even know how to give appropriate amounts of praise to that man for this portrayal. It's so good. Like if he hasn't won some kind of an award for it, it's a horrible decision on whoever gave that award to someone else.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty well said, my man.
So, all right, fourth and final question from Hazardous Something. Do you know of a manga writer called Naoki Urasawa? And he's strongly recommending 21st Century Boys. And if you haven't, you should check it out.
No, and I never heard of that either. But you know what? I will, because that's definitely a more unique question, and you've piqued my curiosity. So I
Oh,
will. I'll do that. But no.
we've got 8 questions left, guys. 4 from Mark Schoeneman and 4 from Alex Foster. So the 4, here we go. Mark Schoeneman, let's start with make a G1 tournament featuring 2 Raw superstars, 2 SmackDown superstars, 2 NXT superstars, and 2 wrestlers from Lucha Underground and New Japan. And book it.
Okay, I'll go first. And for these booking questions, since yeah, as you guys can tell by how we answer certain things, we aren't exactly like the craziest about like the booking stuff because it's more straightforward questions about us that we deal in. So for booking, I'm just going to be very straightforward. For Raw, Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. SmackDown, AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Uh, NXT, right? They said.
Yep.
NXT. Yeah, NXT. I'd say Adam Cole since he's a part of it now, and Hideo Itami, and then New Japan. I'd say Naito, and you know what? Omega, since I imagine Okada's still the champion. And so, like, I know the champion's traditionally in there, but fuck it, it's my G1. And I'm not going to do breakdowns of, like, who beats who and all that, because we're going to be here forever. But my final...
Who did you pick from Lucha Underground again?
I'm sorry, I didn't even do Lucha. Thank you for reminding me. For Lucha Underground, I think I would do Mil Muertes. And you know what? Call me out on my bias, Johnny Mundo. So, Muertes and Mundo. And I think my final would be Shinsuke Nakamura, and since I want to keep it in New Japan, it would be Naito, and I'd have Nakamura win and see if he could reclaim the IWGP Heavyweight title one last time, and maybe even unify it with the WWE title. I turn into this big fucking storyline if I'm booking a G1. So yeah, I'd have Nakamura win it all, beating Naito in the finals, and then that would turn into a big New Japan versus WWE storyline with Nakamura trying to hold both belts. So that's what I would do for my men's G1. And I know what the second question already is going to be, but I can't jump the gun. How about you, Ashton? Who are your 10 guys, 2 from each? And then how would you book it?
Okay. Raw, Cesaro, and Samoa Joe.
Okay.
SmackDown, Luke Harper, and this is a little bit tougher. Luke Harper for sure. And then I guess I'll just kind of play along with what you did already and just say AJ Styles since you mentioned him.
Right.
NXT, I want Buddy Murphy. I don't give a shit. And who else? No, not gonna do him. Aleister Black for sure.
Okay.
Lucha Underground, Matanza, and Cage. And then New Japan, Ishii, and well, you know what? Let's just roll with Naito. So those would be my 10. I really wanted to kind of stack it with just hosses all around. I think that my final, if it's in New Japan, the final would just have to be Styles, Naito, and Naito would win. But if I can book it the way I want, my finals would probably end up being Cesaro and Matanza, and I would have Matanza win.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's move on to our next question.
Same as question 1, but with women. Do you want me to go first on this one? God damn it.
Yeah, you can go first.
I keep hiccuping. All right, Raw, Emma and Sasha Banks.
Okay.
SmackDown is a little bit tougher because really, like, the women's division is good but not great. I mean, Becky is the gimme, but then it becomes a question mark after that. So, let's do. Okay, so we've got Emma, Sasha Banks, Becky, and I feel like whoever I pick, they're going to be in over their heads. So you know what? For that very reason, I'll pick the person that I feel like would be least in over their heads, and that's Natalya from SmackDown.
Okay.
NXT. Am I allowed to pick like Performance Center people that are already signed to contracts that aren't or haven't necessarily made a big debut on NXT yet, or does it have to be people from NXT television?
You know, I don't see anything wrong with people that are contracted, but maybe to play it safe, you should just do NXT women.
Okay. If that's the case, then I'm going to pick Peyton Royce and Ruby Riott.
Okay.
If I'm allowed to go Performance Center, easily Rhea Ripley and Dakota Kai.
Okay.
New Japan, since New Japan doesn't have, a women's thing, we'll do Stardom, in which case I'll do Io Shirai and Chris Wolf.
Okay.
And the finals would come down to Io Shirai versus Emma, and unfortunately, I would probably still have to have Io Shirai go over because she is just the best damn female wrestler on the planet right now. It would either be her, Emma, or her versus Sasha. You know what? I'm changing that. I love Emma, but I wouldn't have her get to the finals. I would have Sasha get to the finals. So it would be Io Shirai versus Sasha Banks in what would inevitably be the greatest women's match to ever occur on planet Earth. And Io Shirai would win.
All right. Damn, because I didn't want to copy you exactly, but I probably will be lifting a lot of the same names that you used. Like for Raw.
Oh, shit. I forgot Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground, Taya and Mariposa easily, but I still wouldn't have either one of them in the finals.
Right. Okay, so for Raw, I'm going to have to take Emma from you because, like, I agree with you completely that she's like this female strong style wrestler. I think she'd make the transition perfectly in a G1 for women. But instead of Sasha, I'll go Nia Jax because she'll serve the Fale role for me. So Emma and Nia Jax. SmackDown, I agree with you about Becky. But you know what, though?
Becky is like the only gimme on SmackDown because everyone like Naomi. I feel like we got a lot of heat in chat for not having Naomi be a Smack. Like, but like the thing with Naomi is what makes her great isn't her wrestling ability. Her wrestling ability is still fairly mediocre. She just has an amazing gimmick and entrance that really, to be fair, her gimmick kind of ends when her entrance ends. If we're being fair, like I love the entrance and it makes me super happy that she got the opportunity that she got. But in the ring, she's still pretty replacement level, not great. Whereas the reason I picked Natalya is because she's like the vet. She's been around forever. We know she can carry lesser opponents to good matches based on what she did with Charlotte at NXT TakeOver. And like, there's just nobody else on SmackDown that I would want.
Right. I think instead of Natalya, I'll go in the other legacy direction. I'll say Charlotte.
Oh,
So
God.
Becky
You're going to
and
just
Charlotte.
sully the whole tournament.
Hey, man, you know, I'm just doing the best I can here. NXT, I will agree with you about Peyton Royce. The only reason I'm not saying Asuka is it already seems like she's going to transition to the main roster because that was part of her.
I didn't say Asuka. I said Ruby Riott, remember?
No, I know you did. I'm saying that the only reason I'm not saying Asuka because that was.
Like, oh, okay. So then, well, I mean, if we put Asuka on Raw, would she take either of your spots on Raw?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's just assume then that Asuka is a Raw superstar, even though it hasn't been officially announced. It has been reported by a very reputable source, Ryan Satin on Pro Wrestling Sheet, that Asuka will be going to Raw.
Well, then I'd swap out Jax for Asuka because even though I would like a monster type character to serve as my Fale, I'm not that desperate for it to suck.
And my thing is like, even with the knowledge of Asuka being on Raw, I would not swap Emma or Sasha out for her.
Right. So yeah, for Raw then I would have Emma and Asuka, SmackDown Becky and Charlotte, NXT I'm gonna say Ember Moon, and I'm gonna agree with you about Peyton Royce. For Lucha Underground, you said Taya and Mariposa. I'll say Taya and Ivelisse when she's healthy. And New Japan, I'm just gonna copy you since I really don't know that many Stardom women, so that works. And then I think my final would be Asuka because she has all the hype. I would even have her. Like, I would have 2 undefeated streaks on both blocks, but Asuka's really significant because she just hasn't been beaten in America either. And I think Io Shirai would also be, like, on my side, but she would just tear through everybody. And like you, I think I would have her win because it is New Japan. And, like, while I wanted to get cute with, like, the men's tournament, I feel a bit more straightforward here. So we'd have her win. It would be a big fucking deal because, wow, Asuka can actually be pinned for 3 seconds. And even though she doesn't need it, it would make Shirai look like $1 million. So, yeah, that would be my women's tournament.
Nice. I dig it, man. I dig it.
All right. Whew. Now on to the more general questions here from Mark. So what's his third question?
Third question. Do you think that New Japan's expansion into the U.S. could lead to more obnoxious U.S. crowds showing up and trying to do like what they do with WWE and basically trying to hijack New Japan shows?
I guess it's always possible, but I think New Japan's such a quality product, I'm not really too worried about it.
Yeah, like to me, the reason that the fans hijack WWE shows isn't because, oh, we got to get ourselves over, brother. It's because they're bored as hell and they want something to do, so that's what they resort to. Whereas with New Japan, you really aren't going to get that. And plus, I'll also add, I think that casual mainstream WWE audiences are far less respectful of the performers than hardcore New Japan type fans.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
So that's my answer. Let's move on, I guess. Fourth and final question from Mark. What are the odds that Jeremiah Crane is the one that killed Katrina in the first place, causing Captain Vasquez to need to revive her using the amulet?
I mean, I guess, wasn't it implied, though, that she died, like, in childbirth, or no?
No.
Okay, because I thought that was implied, but I guess I'm mistaken. So with that knowledge, I mean, I guess it's possible, because let's remember there was one cinematic where Jeremiah retrieved a Ouija board, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, like, we get a cinematic where they were playing with that, because Lucha Underground loves its callbacks, and maybe because it is the Luchaverse, some shit happened that they didn't anticipate, and that's how Katrina died. Or maybe he just went nutso and killed her that way. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's far-fetched. I think it's possible. I mean, they have a relationship, and that alone puts it in the realm, to me, of plausibility at least. because he's close to her, and so now all you need is a motive to kill her if there was one. So yeah, I mean, is it possible? Sure. And hopefully the details of her life come to life, because with the revelation that Vasquez is the mother, it only makes me more fascinated. So yeah, I wouldn't take that off the table. What about you?
I definitely think that it seems like kind of a Lucha Underground thing to do, but I think that the medallion, or I guess the amulet, I should say, I don't think that that brings people back to life from the dead. I think that it might save somebody from death. I don't know. Like, was it ever directly stated that Katrina died and was had to like that the amulet was what brought her back to life, or was she was dying and the amulet prevented that from happening?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I mean the way they phrased it wasn't anything explicit. It was more like a workaround, like, oh, I gave you life twice. Well, you could read into that for sure. So I don't really know what the exact circumstances were. And given that, that does make this a more difficult question to answer. So I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess I mean I hope we answered that in such a way that you feel content with what we've said. Because now we got 4 questions from Alex Foster, and we're going to close this thing out. First question is for John only. Oh, please let me pronounce this correctly. What Akatsuki members represent Scum Squad members? And he said repeats are allowed. It's okay if I can't beat Hidan. Sad face.
Well, I remember Hidan being very like creepy and high energy, so that's definitely James, because he's definitely the creeper of the group. Um, let's see. I would say, Foster, that you strike me more as a Deidara type, because you seem like the artistic type to me. Maybe I'm completely incorrect about that. And you seem like the type that you'd be very proud
of. You
mean
to tell me he is the artist, Alex Foster?
Yeah, but see, much like Datara, you really have no right to take as much pride as you do in your art, because it sucks. Your macaroni art never made the fridge, and you're not really public about that with everybody, but I am, so there you go. Let's see here. We have, what other Akatsuki members? We have, geez, there are so many. I don't fucking, do I have to do every member? Jesus Christ. Sasori, I think, would be me, because he turns like humans into puppets and he weaponizes them. And that's some sick shit, and like that totally seems like something I would do if given power. Like, I know if I was given unbelievable power, I would be evil. Like, I've been pretty explicit about that. So yeah, that seems to be my vibe. Itachi, I don't know. Itachi strikes me as like the Brandon type, because Itachi seems like kind of like an edgelord type. Like, oh, I had to kill my entire clan and my family, and now I can never come back. Like, bruh, make yourself a ham and cheese sandwich and smile about fucking something. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, I'll say, yeah, keep it together there, Ashton. I hear you over there. I would say that's Brandon, even though I
do this character assassination on Brandon.
I mean, I love Brandon to death, and he's even admitted it. You can ask him. He admits to being an edgelord. So, yeah, Kisame, I don't know, he's kind of a smartass and he likes the water. I don't know if Cliff has like a water complex. I mean, I wasn't there for so many years of his life. Again, I am trying to get to know my son better. So, yeah, he would probably be Kisame. Who would be, God, I forget his actual identity. I'm just going to call him Toby, because I know that's not his actual name, but that was like the identity he assumed. He's really dark and into some powerful shit. So, I don't know, you'd probably be that, actually. That'd be the one I give you, because, I mean, you're an intelligent guy, and I could see you fooling everybody, because we're all fucking marks anyway. So that'd probably be your identity. I go, you thought I was this, but I was only using 25% of my power the whole time. And I can wipe my own ass. So, who else? I know there was a guy that, like, harvested hearts that I can't remember, but he seemed fucking like serious all the time and no nonsense. Do we have a serious member here? I guess we used to, until we're like, yeah, we're done with you people. Maybe Sal could be that guy. Sal's a nice guy.
No, Sal is not a serious person, okay?
Well, who would you say is a serious person? Paul. There you go. Paul would be that guy. I forget his actual name. And you know what? Those are all the fucking Akatsuki members that I can remember. Kakuzu. Yeah, you're a Kakuzu buster. But anyway, that's my answer to that question. I feel like I gave this way more effort than it deserved. Let's move on.
All right, second question is just for me. If we had to add one more person to any of our fantasy football leagues, but it had to be a wrestler, who would it be?
I'm sorry, I was kind of reading. You said fantasy football leagues, but we're making them out of wrestlers?
No. This the question's for me. This question is for me. And the question is, if we had to add one more person to any of our fantasy football leagues, but it had to be a wrestler, who would it be? And this is where I'm struggling, because I'm like, do I want to add the person that I think is most likely to make the league more fun and interesting? Or do I want to add the person that I want to get to know best and become actual IRL friends with? Because if I was going for like the make the league interesting thing, it's Seth Rollins all day, every day.
All right.
But if it's the person that I want to be friends with, it's close between Xavier Woods because of the video games and up, down, down thing, and Dakota Kai because she's my waifu.
I love how you said that. Oh, man. Well, yeah, I think with those qualifiers, that in itself is an answer. I mean, unless you feel like you have to make a decision. I mean, what side do you come down on?
Cliff, do you even understand how fantasy football works? And do you really understand how football works? Because Keith Lee's like 300 pounds. He's a defensive tackle, not a linebacker. What are you doing?
Look, don't judge my son for trying to participate.
Tell your son to know his boundaries.
Cliff, we'll talk about it later, son. But look, just take it from dear old dad. You're out of your depth. I've been there. It's pretty much every day of my life. Just go wait in the car, okay? I'll get you custard afterwards.
I love Sal. Sal in chat. Sal's just like, I'll be the free thrower. That doesn't mean anything. So yeah, those are my answers. I mean, if this was actually legitimately like this is happening, I don't think I would be able to resist having Dakota Kai at that kind of like personal access. Like there's, I don't know if I would be able to not do that. But if we're talking like just imaginary, like the coolest thing to happen, probably Seth.
Right, okay, that sounds
because I know he's like a legit football fan, so he would probably like actually add to the league. Like he would actually be like a contender. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, those are my answers. Third question from Foster. Vince has signed you guys to WWE to be part of Southpaw Regional Wrestling. What are your characters?
Let me ask you something, because it's been a while since we watched it, and I know we still have to watch the season 2 episodes, which we should probably do that sometime next week. I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I'm just not I'm not into it at all. Like the first few episodes were fine, but I'm just kind of over it.
Should I watch them by myself then? Like, because I didn't know that.
Probably, yeah. Like you watch them and then tell me if they were worth watching, and maybe I will if they are.
But who? Because it was Fandango, right? That was by John Cena's Lance Catamaran, but he seems to have.
Yeah. Yep.
So, what was his name though on the show? Do you remember?
Hell if I know.
Well, excuse me. You're going back to the whole Tobias thing. But if anybody could give me that name, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I would come in as his sponsor. You know, like
Chet Cheddarfield.
The sauce. Beg pardon?
Chet Cheddarfield.
Oh, Chet Cheddarfield. Yeah, I would be Chet Cheddarfield's sponsor, like at AA meetings, because he really needed to lay off the sauce. He wanted to keep his job at the station, so that would be my character.
Okay, so you know how Tex Ferguson and Chad Too Bad are a tag team, and Tex is basically like the bigger version of Chad?
Yeah.
I would be the Tex to Tex. Like Tex is the Tex to Chad. I would be the Tex to Tex, because I would be like the next step up, because like it's Chad, then Tex, then me, and we would just be like three brothers, and three good brothers at that.
Three brothers.
No. Oh, don't get me to do that. I will look up the script and read it word for word. Don't.
All right. So yeah, next question. I guess fourth and final question.
The fourth and final question from Alex Foster, and the final question of the August 2017 Q&A. Team Rocket has recruited you guys to steal Pikachu. What is your course of action?
You know what? I am so far gone after doing this Q&A for so long. Fuck it. Oh God, the things we do when we just no longer give a fuck. I'd sneak in to where Ash, Misty, and Brock are staying. I slit Ash's throat.
Oh my!
And as he's bleeding out, as Misty's crying out, "Oh God, what happened? What?" I stab her in the abdomen, so she's just bleeding out slowly. And then Brock, I'd kick him in the balls. I'd slit his throat too. But then, for extra measure, for every Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy that he accosted, I would cut his genitalia off and shove him in his mouth. And then I would take the Pikachu, stuff it in my bag, but as it would try and thunderbolt me, I'd be sure to be wearing rubber gloves and just like, you know, all rubber everything, I guess. And I would
shove Pikachu in a condom.
Yeah. But not before chloroforming the shit out of it. And then I'd shove it in a condom, and then I'd give it to Team Rocket. But oh wait, I produce a gun at the last minute, shoot all three of them, grab me out by the tail, slam him hard against the rock. Or a rock, I should say, because slamming him into the performer would be weird. Just like Jason killed that one person by hitting him hard against a tree, which is one of the most hilarious deaths in the Friday the 13th movies. And then after I've killed everyone, I'd go to the Team Rocket head and I'd be like, you see this? You see this? 20-something fucking seasons, you never had this. It took me 2 days. Pay me, motherfucker. Pay me. And he would, and I'd be happy, which... Really, Foster, we both know you asked this question to see how we'd get to that result, because my happiness is really the only thing that matters. So, yeah, that's how I would do it. Pretty much kill everyone and not give a single fuck. How would you do it? You're an intelligent guy. Say words.
Yeah, and here I had an actual plan that involved not killing anyone, and you just come over and steal all the glory.
At least, well, okay. Because if I was about to clap back, because it seemed like you had some real sass behind there, but then you talked about glory, and I mean, of course I did. So, what's your plan?
Well, boy, I guess we know what kind of hairline trigger your security is on.
Hey, at least I actually have a hairline, unlike Baron Corbin.
Oh, jeez. Okay, well, the plan that I came up with was that I would ride my Tauros to wherever Ash and company are staying. I would wait for them to walk into a relatively small confined room. I would sick one of my grass types on them and have it use sleep powder to put them all to sleep. And then I would just put Pikachu in a goddamn Pokeball, because that's where it frickin' belongs.
Say it again. I love it. He said that's where it freaking belongs. Don't think you're fucking special.
Well, then, like, the thing is with Pikachu, it's like, it's technically still a wild Pikachu. It's not technically Ash's because he doesn't have a Pokeball dedicated to it. Like, right. Games, if you run into a wild Pikachu that doesn't have an owner, you can catch it. And the only thing that makes a Pokemon belong to an individual person, technically, that prevents you from being able to capture it in a Pokeball, is if it already has a designated Pokeball, with Ash's Pikachu doesn't. So, like, it's just like, really, guys? Come on, overthink it.
Yeah, God, I did not expect this. Actually, I did, because I was at the end of my rope, but that was amazing. Gotta catch them all and exploit the shit out of them for your own personal gain. Alright, well, that was the last question. We finished before 11, which I think is the biggest shocker of the whole thing, but still over 3 hours.
Yeah, and now we get to play Rocket League until 11:30 and then watch the last 4 episodes of The Defenders.
It's gonna be so fucking good.
Good.
So, yeah, I guess I'll go first. Guys, what I always say on my end, thank you so much for everybody who submitted questions. Ashton, let me ask you this now before I continue. are we lowering the cap to 3 questions, given that we got, what, 79 questions?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we got 79. I tell you guys what, we'll keep it at 4 for now. And if we go over 80 next month, we'll lower it to 3.
Okay. So you heard it here. We're keeping it at 4 for right now. And thankfully, Ashton repeated Sal's questions twice, which is why we thought we went over 80, but we're still under 80. So you know the
so and you know what, Sal said plug the shirts again. I was actually not even planning on doing that necessarily, but what I really do want to drive home, guys, Discord access only $3. If you would like exclusive access to the official TWitWoW patron Discord channel, we will invite you tomorrow. If you donate $3 to our Patreon within the next 76 minutes, you have that long before midnight strikes on the East Coast and your window closes. You can get access to September, all of September. You get Discord access for the entire month of September. We are not going to be covering any WWE television shows on this YouTube channel. We will be talking about them in the Discord, though. So if you want our thoughts on them, that's how to get them. $3 is all we need for you guys to be able to get access to this Discord. It is a discussion channel. It is basically a chat room. We are going to be adding like 3 to 4 new people. I would love to add more of you, but I'm not going to just willy-nilly add people because that's a Pandora's box that means, oh, well, if anybody can get in, then just give me an invite and I won't donate. And then it's just going to completely screw over our revenue streams, which YouTube is already doing their best to do in the first place. So please, donate the $3. Get into the Discord. If you're a hardcore TWitWoW fan, it is the best possible experience you can have. I am plugging it this hard, not because I'm desperate for your money, but because it is the final day of the month. And if you don't do it by the end of the day today, you won't be able to get into the Discord until October 1st at the earliest. And September is a 30-day month. So it's 30 extra days that even if you donate the $3 tomorrow, if you donate $3 tomorrow, I appreciate it, but I'm still not going to be able to let you into the Discord until October 1st, because that's when that payment actually gets processed. And I let people into the Discord when their payments are processed, not just when it says, oh, this person donated $10, because they could easily retract that donation on the last day of the month just to be dicks and be like, oh, hey, haha, thanks for the access to the Discord all month, but you're not getting my money anyway, even though that's the only reason you gave me access to the Discord. So that's how this thing works. The payments get processed on the 1st, and as soon as those payments are processed, I give you the link so that you can get into the Discord. That's the give and take of that exchange. And I really just want to drive that home because it is the last day, and because last month we had 2 or 3 people saying, oh, I didn't know that I had to get my money in by that day. Well, now I am driving it the hell home. There are 13 people here now, and maybe 8 of them are in the Discord. I want all 13 of you in there.
Yeah, so you got the hardcore plug there. Get in the Discord, guys. You won't be disappointed. I think it is a great investment on a multitude of fronts.
And you know what? I also want to add that, hey, if you feel like being really generous, we have a new community goal. It's set to $120, and that's not something that one person has to do, obviously. That's a community goal that's combined. We are over 90 right now, but in order for us to live react to a chapter of Progress Wrestling once a week for the entire month of September, we've got to get that Discord up over $120, because I figured out the math. I figured out the average runtime of every single Progress chapter, and then I averaged them all out, and I figured out how much a request for us to live react to one of those shows every week would cost an individual person, and I set that as our community goal. It's $120. That covers our live reacting, and that also covers Progress on Demand for both of us. And that's going to be our big goal that we're really hoping that you guys can reach during the fall, because otherwise the only content you're going to be getting during the fall, I hope people realize this, is Lucha Underground, NXT, and WWE pay-per-views, because we will not be covering Raw, we will not be covering SmackDown, and obviously we will be covering New Japan shows, but it's not going to be the Road 2 stuff. It's just going to be the big ones. It's just going to be Power Struggle and King of Pro Wrestling and Destruction are the 3 shows that we're going to be covering. And that's New Japan, but I really would love it if you guys would be able to get us to the $120 community goal for us to be able to live react to Progress, because Progress is a promotion John and I have both shown a lot of interest in, but we don't want to watch it without live reacting to it, and we don't want to live react to it just randomly on YouTube because the views would be absolutely garbage and we would make literally no money off of it. So it's really one of those situations where it has to be a Patreon special, which is why I made it a community goal. I'm encouraging you guys to do it, and it has basically replaced SmackDown Live Reactions as our community goal. SmackDown Live Reactions are out the door because we are taking our WWE break in the fall. We might make SmackDown Live Reactions an option again in December or January when we come back to the point that we might be okay with covering WWE again. But for right now, we are super done with it for the rest of the year. We're only going to be covering the pay-per-views, and we want to be able to live react to Progress, but only if it's worth it to us. And that is what the community goal is there for. And again, it's got to get it in there in the next 70 minutes because midnight is coming up very quickly, and that's the end deadline for when the stuff is going to be in and it gets processed. So I'm done plugging now. John, I'm going to let you take over.
All right, guys, I just wanted to clarify that with Ashton, just for my side of the outro before I hand it back to him. This was Q&A number 14. You guys know what I do. The moment we go off air, the first thing I do is I unpin the pinned tweet from the previous Q&A. Again, this is 14. So then that's gone. That goes to wherever the hell spawn it came from. And then I do the new pinned tweet for Q&A 15. Q&A 15, let me get it right this time, especially when I tweet it. The 28th, because it's the last Thursday of every month. You guys know that. So September 28th, I'm not even going to talk about how much time you guys have or the rules. You guys sat in for this. You fucking know. So September 28th, I'm going to do the pin tweet as soon as we go off the air here. I know James, he already sent in September questions. I am going to count those, James, as your September questions, and I'll record them probably the day before because I'm a procrastinating piece of shit. But yeah, get your questions in, guys. Pin tweet, DM, Discord, blah, 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 blah. September 28th is Q&A number 15. With that said, thank you guys so much for all the questions you submitted. A lot of hilarious ones. Not as somber as last Q&A, I feel like, which I like. And
we only had like 2 or 3 questions that really required us to get down and dirty and serious and talk about shit that actually matters.
Yeah, more of that, please. I'm already depressed enough from the day-to-day between shit going on in my own little world and then shit going on in the actual world, which I never know when that's not even going to be here anymore. So yeah, just keep it light. I love it. But of course, if you want to keep it serious, that's fine too. I just appreciate that we had a bit more levity this month. So who knows what September will hold? You guys know because you're asking the questions. Get to it. But yeah, now I'm going to hand it over to Ashton, who's going to take us home. Thank you guys again, and we'll be seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we are going to close it out here. We already did a ton of plugging. Make sure to check out the Teespring store. We have 2 relatively new designs on there. One is a Braun Strowman inspired t-shirt that just says "Not finished with you" in 3-letter lines, like what you'll see in the 3x3s. It looks pretty cool. And then the newest Emma shirt. It is heavily inspired by Emma's Evil Emma character that John and I love so much, that her match with Asuka in TakeOver London was as the Evil Emma character. And the reason that it's the real face of the revolution is the name of the shirt. And the reason for that is because WWE is kind of going out of their way to have Emma say that she started the women's revolution so much that people stop believing her, but we don't want to forget that it actually is true. She and Paige were the building blocks that the women's revolution was built upon, and I don't want anyone to forget that. And Paige is in kind of a weird place right now, but Emma is still she's there and she's healthy and she hasn't had any kind of I don't really know what to refer to it when I say off-field problems. She hasn't had any personal issues since the damn iPhone case, which was years ago, and she ended up, paying the price by literally getting fired and then rehired in the next day. And really, that shouldn't have any kind of impact on what's going on with her now, and yet she's still being booked like a completely incompetent character, which we all know is the opposite of the truth. So as a dedication to Emma and hopefully a way to kind of get recognition for her, I made the Emma hashtag revolution design, the real face of the hashtag revolution. And I think it's my best work yet. John thinks it's my best work yet. My mom absolutely loves the design. She's not even an Emma fan, but she wants to buy the shirt. And it's, yeah, I'm really proud of it. And hopefully you guys like it as well. We want as many people representing, Emma and Braun Strowman and TWitWoW as a brand on their bodies as possible. And even if you don't want it on your body, if you don't feel like spending $25 for the shirt and shipping, buy a mug and drink out of it, or buy a sticker and put it on your car or on the wall in your room. Your call. It's, it really doesn't matter to us what you do with it, but what matters is that you're representing that sort of brand, whether it's Emma or Braun or Kevin Owens in the He's a Father Damn It, cases, or us, whether it's the TWitWoW shirt or the Scum Squad shirt, I'm a TWitWoW guy, I'm a TWitWoW girl, any of them. It's all about sort of representing a brand that you believe in. And then, of course, follow us both on Twitter, like the official TWitWoW Facebook page, check out the subreddit if you're on Reddit. And then I think that's about all we've got for you guys. So we will be back on Wednesday with a live reaction to Lucha Underground review. And that's all we've got next week. So we might end up doing a Patreon request if we get any for the month. Otherwise, we'll see you on Wednesday. But regardless, you know what to do. Stay tuned.